Ever since we were kids, there's been one kind of story we've always loved. Tales about boys who discover special powers and end up saving the universe. Just think about the classics: Dragon Ball, Naruto, Pokemon. These kinds of stories work because they show us that anyone can be special, giving us that good old hope we all need sometimes. And when it comes to anime about cards or magical monsters, the Yu-Gi-Oh franchise has always been a go-to reference. From the original classic to newer ones like Zexal, each series brought something new to the table, but there's one that took things in a completely different direction. Enter the anime we're talking about today, Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5. It's basically a multi-dimensional version of Yu-Gi-Oh!, only this time with 4 identical protagonists and a conspiracy that spans across parallel realities. It's an anime that literally leaves the fanbase completely split. On one side, there are fans who swear Arc 5 is an underrated masterpiece with the most complex storyline in the entire franchise. On the other, there are people who say it's the worst Yu-Gi-Oh! Ever made, full of plot holes and wasted characters. And the crazy part is, if you look closely, both sides kind of have a point. If I had to sum up Arc 5 in one sentence, it would be, you just can't stay indifferent to this anime. So, today on the channel, Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5, the most controversial Yu-Gi-Oh! Ever, and maybe the most ambitious one too. Here we meet Yuya Sakaki, a duelist who prefers putting on a show to dueling seriously. He's in a duel against his friend Gong Strong, and instead of attacking, he summons a bunch of dancing hippos with the card Hippo Carnival. Across town, his friend Zuzu Boyle watches the whole thing, furious. In a fit of rage, she smashes the computer controlling the arena, causing Yuya to fall flat on his face. At their duel school, Yusho, everyone gives Yuya an earful. Gong, the serious friend of the group, points out that Yuya's father, Yusho Sakaki, was a top-tier duelist who truly made audiences smile, but he mysteriously disappeared. Yuya retorts, saying that in the end, they laughed at him. The argument is interrupted by Nico Smiley, the agent for the current champion, the Sledgehammer. He invites Yuya to an exhibition duel against the champ. This hits a nerve with Yuya, who remembers the day his father failed to show up for a match against the very same Sledgehammer and was branded a coward. After some drama and nearly being bought off with a new dueling machine, Yuya runs off to think. He recalls his father's advice: when you feel like crying, laugh like a pendulum that always swings back stronger. Inspired, he accepts the duel. In the arena, Yuya appears dressed as a clown, making fun of the champion. The duel begins, and he starts running across the field on his hippo, grabbing action cards to dodge the attacks of the Sledgehammer's giant monster, Battleguard King. The crowd thinks he's a coward, just like his father, but when all seems lost, with only 400 life points left, his pendant begins to glow, and out of nowhere, the cards in his hand transform into something entirely new: Pendulum monsters. He summons Stargazer Magician and Time Gazer Magician to create a scale and pendulum summon. He brings back his odd eyes and 2 other monsters all at once, leaving everyone jaw-dropped. The Sledgehammer has no idea what's happening. Meanwhile, in a high-tech tower, a group of people detects this unknown summoning energy, and a mysterious president takes an interest in the pendulum. Back in the arena, Yuya wastes no time. He uses the effects of his Performapals to turn the Sledgehammer's 5,000 attack behemoth into a 500 attack kitten. The champion tries to fight back, but Yuya demonstrates the true power of pendulums. The Sledgehammer attempts to use a trap card, but Time Gazer Magician negates it. He grabs an action card, and Stargazer Magician negates that too. Basically, the guy is stuck in you can't do anything mode. With a clear path, Yuya attacks with his Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon, which has an effect that doubles the damage. It's a one-hit knockout. The Sledgehammer hits the floor, and Yuya is the victor. Yuya becomes an overnight celebrity. His duel school, which was practically empty, is suddenly flooded with people wanting to learn this pendulum summon. There's just one problem: Yuya himself has no clue how he did it. In a demonstration duel against Zuzu, he tries to pendulum summon, but it doesn't work. His duel disc just beeps error, like trying to run a heavy-duty game on a Walmart laptop. He even lets Zuzu attack to see if the summon only works when he's about to lose, but he ends up losing badly. The crowd, who once loved him, now calls him a cheater, saying he's a coward like his father. But then a little boy named Tate, his first true fan, stands up for him. This gives Yuya new energy, and he vows to master this new technique. To make matters worse, elsewhere, a mysterious blonde kid is being hired to steal Yuya's pendulum card cards. The trouble is just getting started. Yuya finally masters the Pendulum summon, but the celebration is short-lived. A preppy brat from the Leo Corporation, Silvio Sawatari, shows up and brazenly steals Yuya's Pendulum cards. He traps Yuya's friends in a virtual tower and challenges him to a duel. The duel kicks off with Silvio gloating and using Yuya's own stolen cards to perform a Pendulum summon. Yuya is in shock, taking a serious beating and watching his own technique used against him. To make matters worse, the duel field is a trap, filled with action cards that are actually traps, and the tower where his friends are imprisoned begins to crumble. The episode ends with Yuya on the ropes, but he's not about to give up. He needs to find a way to turn the tables using the very cards Silvio called trash. And the head of LID, Declan Akaba, is watching everything. The duel continues with Silvio in the lead, but Yuya remembers his father's advice: laugh when things get tough. He starts using the trash cards Silvio discarded, creating a defense with Block Spider. Silvio breaks through the defense and the tower collapses, but then the magic happens. Yuya had a trap that not only reduces the damage, but also returns his stolen Pendulum cards. Yuya's monsters save everyone at the last second. Now, the tables have turned. Yuya lets out his famous "Ladies and Gentlemen," performs his Pendulum summon, and brings out Odd Eye's Pendulum Dragon. He destroys Silvio's monsters with an overpowered combo, and wins the duel using the same card his rival had dismissed. In the end, a blue-haired boy named Sora knocks Silvio out and declares himself Yuya's apprentice, while Declan continues to observe, finding the Pendulum summon intriguing. Yuya wakes up from a dream to find Sora, who has moved into his house. The kid is super clingy and constantly calls Yuya teacher. He challenges him to a duel, and Yuya accepts on the condition that if he wins, Sora will leave him alone. The duel starts off silly, on a candy-themed field. Yuya performs his Pendulum summon and brings out Odd Eye's Pendulum Dragon, nearly wiping out Sora's life points. But the blue-haired kid wasn't playing around. Sora draws a polymerization card and performs a fusion summon, turning his cute little critters into a terrifying monster. The smile vanishes from Yuya's face. Things just got serious, and Yuya now has to face a new summoning technique. Sora uses a barrage of traps to corner Yuya, who almost loses the game. Odd Eye's Pendulum Dragon is destroyed. In a moment of desperation, Yuya remembers his father's advice and starts to laugh. Through his laughter, he understands a key rule of Pendulum summoning. The monsters don't go to the graveyard. They go to the extra deck and can be summoned again. With this new tactic, Yuya summons Odd Eyes again, weakens Sora's demonic bear, and wins the duel in spectacular fashion. In the end, Sora stops calling Yuya teacher and calls him friend. Enrolling in the school, Yuya has a new rival, and we discover the existence of another extra deck summoning method in the dimensions. Zuzu, seeking revenge against Silvio, confronts him in a warehouse. But before the duel can begin, a masked man appears, easily defeats Silvio, and reveals the third extra deck summoning method, Exis Summon. He uses his monsters to summon Dark Rebellion Exis Dragon, a black dragon that drains the power from Silvio's monster and defeats him with a devastating attack. The masked man asks about Duel Academy, but Silvio knows nothing. The masked man removes his mask, and we see he looks exactly like Yuya. Zuzu is in shock, and her bracelet glows. The man vanishes into thin air, and the real Yuya appears, leaving Zuzu completely confused by the appearance of the first-dimensional counterpart. Yuto, the powerful Henrietta Akaba, head of the Leo Corporation, arrives in town. Her son, Declan, updates her on two things: Yulia's new Pendulum summon and the mysterious attack that landed Silvio in the hospital. Speaking of Silvio, he's there, wrapped in bandages, pretending he's on death's door just to frame Yuya, while his father causes a scene all over the city. Henrietta shows up, sends a bouquet of flowers, and tells the family to let her handle everything. At the Yusho Duel School, class is in session. Sora is more interested in mixing ice cream with cream, calling it a fusion summon, while Zuzu is lost in thought, thinking about the masked duelist, who looked just like Yuya. The peace is shattered when Silvio's cronies appear, accusing Yuya in front of everyone and claiming Zuzu saw the whole thing. Zuzu hesitates to answer, which makes Yuya tense. To make matters worse, they lie and say Silvio is at death's door. Suddenly, Henrietta Akaba herself appears in a limousine. She takes everyone to the Leo Institute and reveals her plan, a 3-on-3 battle. If Yusho wins, she'll drop the case against Silvio, but if the Leo Institute wins, she takes over their school. Her goal is clear: to get her hands on the Pendulum summon and make it part of her empire. Yuya, outraged, refuses the offer. He says the school was a gift from his father and he won't give it up for anything. His defiance inspires his friends. Sora, Yuya, and Zuzu volunteer to represent Yusho in the challenge. The first duel is set, Yuya versus Dipper, the top student of the Leo Institute's Exis course, a guy with a 91% win rate. To help matters, Zuzu's dad chooses the action field Cosmic Sanctuary, which, ironically, is the perfect field for Dipper, whose name is inspired by constellations. As Yuya prepares to fight for his school's future, a mysterious cloaked man appears outside Yusho. The showdown begins with Zuzu explaining that the rival school, the Leo Institute of Dueling, wants to take over the Yusho Duel School. Dipper starts the duel by summoning his Exorcist monster, Constellar Pleiades, and sending Yuya's dragon back to his hand.
And the card I choose is Odd Eyes.
Yuya takes a heavy blow but doesn't give up. Dipper continues to use his monster's ability to corner Yuya, but the protagonist shows the game isn't over. Yuya saves himself by the skin of his teeth and at the last second turns the tables with a brilliant plan. He uses his monsters in a surprising way, boosts their attack, and secures the first victory for Yusho. After Yuya's victory, it's Zuzu's turn to duel. She's confused because of Yuya's lookalike and faces Julia Crystal, a fusion summon specialist. Julia tells Zuzu she lacks sparkle, and the duel begins on a field of crystals. Julia performs a fusion summon on her first turn. Zuzu fights back, destroying Julia's monster and going for a direct attack. But Julia was just warming up. She performs another fusion summon, bringing out her most powerful monster, Gem Knight Master Diamond, which copies the effect of another monster. Zuzu, flustered, can't react and loses the duel. The score is tied 1-1, and now it's up to Gong Strong to save the day against Kit Blade, a wild card who started the duel with two powerful Synchro monsters already on the field. The situation is tense. Kit wastes no time and goes on the offensive. He destroys Gong's defense monster and then attacks directly, dropping our big guy's life points to 1500. But Gong doesn't even flinch, taking the hits like a true man of stone. As he says himself, a real man never runs from a fight. On his turn, Gong demonstrates the power of his steadfast dueling. He summons his ace monster, Super Heavy Samurai Big Ben K, in defense mode. But there's a trick. This monster can attack while in defense, using its 3,500 defense points as attack. With that, he crushes one of Kit's monsters. What a comeback. But Kit is like a magician pulling cards out of a hat. He swarms the field with monsters again, and summons another Synchro monster. To make things worse, he uses action cards to power up his creatures, and a trap to inflict piercing damage. Gong takes a beating, left with only 100 life points and no cards in his hand. That's when we understand Gong's plan. A flashback reveals he built a deck with only monsters on purpose, so he wouldn't have to rely on the luck of action cards. It's pure confidence in his strategy, and what a strategy it is. Just when Kit thinks he's won, Gong activates the effects of cards that went to his graveyard. It's one reversal after another. One effect inflicts damage. Kit reflects the damage back, but Gong activates another effect that negates the reflected damage. To finish it off, this last card destroys everything on the field and inflicts 3,300 damage to both players. The result? A draw. Nobody saw that coming. The head of LID refuses to accept the result and demands a tiebreaker. Yuya prepares to fight, but a new mysterious duelist named Declan steps up instead. Things just got serious. It's the moment of truth. Yuya versus Declan in the tiebreaker match. Yuya is stone-faced and focused, but his friends remind him that dueling is supposed to be fun. He agrees, puts on a smile, and promises to put on a show. Declan starts in a bizarre way, activating 3 cards that will inflict 3,000 damage to himself each turn. Everyone is confused, thinking the guy is sabotaging himself, but the high-stakes gamble has a purpose. These cards allow him to perform a fusion summon without the specific spell card, bringing Triple D Flame King Genghis to the field. On his turn, Yuya goes all out, combining his monster's effect with an action card to gain an advantage. But Declan is just as agile, grabbing an action card to defend himself and negating the attack. It's an intense duel. The crowd realizes the trap. If Yuya simply ends his turn, Declan loses due to the damage from his own cards. It would be an easy win, but Declan provokes Yuya, calling him naive for hesitating. Yuya ends his turn, and then the bomb drops. It was all a plan. Declan activates a trap that cancels all the damage, destroys his contract cards, and even lets him draw 4 new cards. The guy is an evil genius. Declan then reveals that he knows Yuya's father and that until now, he was just warming up. And he wasn't kidding. In a single turn, the guy pulls off an insane combo. First, a Synchro summon bringing out Triple D Gust King Alexander. Then, using a chain of effects, he performs an Exis summon Triple D Wave King Caesar. By the end of his turn, Declan's field has a fusion, a Synchro, and an Exis monster. 3 boss monsters at once. Yuya, who thought he was about to win, is now facing a one-man army. The situation went from 0 to 100 real quick. Yuya defends with Hippo tokens, but it's just a stalling tactic. Yuya summons Odd Eye's Pendulum Dragon and a new monster, clearing Declan's field, but Declan's monsters return from the graveyard, and to make matters worse, he reveals that he can also use Pendulum summoning.
My trio of Triple D Doom King Armageddon!
The guy summons 3 overpowered dragons, each with 3,000 attack. Declan explains that what Yuya has accomplished is merely the first step in the evolution of Pendulum, and that his own deck is far superior. But then, out of nowhere, his monsters self-destruct. Declan simply forfeits, handing the victory to Yuya, but making it clear that the real challenge is the evolution of Pendulum. Yuya is in a major slump because the Pendulum summon is no longer exclusive to him. He refuses to use the technique, but the school's principal, Skip Boyle, challenges him to a duel to teach him a lesson. Meanwhile, at LID, Declan is investigating a mysterious attack involving an Exis summon. The signs of an interdimensional war are becoming more apparent. Back at the duel, Skip tries to get Yuya to use his pendulums, but he remains stubborn. The principal does the unthinkable. He steals Yuya's pendulum cards and performs his own pendulum summon. The scene is hilarious, with Skip dancing around the field. The lesson finally sinks in for Yuya. Skip explains that having rivals who copy your technique isn't a defeat, but an opportunity to evolve, just as Yuya's father did. With the lesson learned, Yuya reclaims his cards, summons Odd Eye's Pendulum Dragon, and wins the duel with a spectacular attack. He promises to train harder to honor his father's legacy and master the pendulum. Yuya is scrambling to qualify for the Arc League Championship, but no one wants to duel him anymore after he beat the Sledgehammer. He needs 50 duels with a 60% win rate and is stuck at 56.5%. Nico Smiley appears offering a VIP free pass, but Yuya refuses because he wants to qualify the right way. Meanwhile, Zuzu is training fusion summoning with Sora near LID. A masked duelist appears, Zuzu's bracelet glows, and the guy vanishes, with Yuya appearing in his place. Julia accuses Yuya, but Sora saves the day by telling her to chase after the real culprit. Declan notices that super powerful Exis and fusion summons are happening across the city. Like glitches in the system, the masked duelist appears again, and this time, we see he has a partner named Shay, who pulls off an Exis summon so overpowered, it creates a whirlwind and sends everyone flying.
I exceed summon.
To make matters worse, Declan received cards with his elite duelists, Herc and Marco, trapped inside them. The guys were literally turned into cards. Shay despises LID and starts targeting its elite students. Declan is preparing hardcore, testing out tuned up pendulum cards and summoning 3 Triple D Doom King Armageddon at once. He knows he's not on Yuya's level yet. Then comes the crucial moment. Shay sees Zuzu and calls her Lulu, as if he knows her. Yuto, the masked duelist, appears to restrain his friend, but when Yuya arrives, Zuzu's bracelet glows and teleports both Yuto and Shay away. It becomes clear that there's a connection between these people from different dimensions. Yuya is on the verge of losing his 3rd qualifying duel against Aura, a psychic who uses ritual summoning. In an epic moment, Zuzu's polymerization card accidentally ends up in his deck, and he uses it to create Rune Eye's Pendulum Dragon, the first real evolution of pendulum summoning, proving the technique can be combined with others. This shows that Yuya is starting to understand what Declan meant about evolution. While Sora wants to celebrate, Zuzu follows a girl from LID, Julia, who is confronting Shay, a mysterious duelist attacking LID. Julia, Kit, and Dipper team up for a 3-on-1 duel. Zuzu finds Yuto, who reveals that Shay is fighting to rescue his sister, Lulu, who is identical to Zuzu. The LID trio uses a combination of Exis, Synchro, and fusion summons to corner Shay. He is completely cornered and left with only 10 life points, but he activates a trap that saves him at the last second. Shay uses his low life points to activate a card and summon Raid Raptor Rise Falcon. The monster absorbs the power of all of his opponent's monsters, and its attack skyrockets to over 16,000. With a single strike, the Falcon sweeps the field, defeating all 3 LID duelists at once. To top it off, Declan Akaba appears to face Shay, and things get serious. Meanwhile, Yuya wakes up to the most important day of his life and finds no one at home. He's dragged into his final qualifying duel, and his opponent is his best friend Gong. Gong reveals he wants to stop being the nice guy and evolve. He, who had only used steadfast dueling, performs a synchro summon and brings out the powerful monster Susanoo. Yuya is shocked by his friend's new technique, and the duel, which was supposed to be friendly, turns into an epic battle. The drama intensifies when Gong's father claims his son lost by stealing techniques from another school, but Gong defends himself. He learned from a rival in order to evolve. It's the classic, if you can't beat them, learn their tricks, and Gong's new monster is overpowered. It can attack while in defense mode using its 3,800 defense points, and can even use the spell cards from Yuya's graveyard. It's like using the enemy's own special move against them. Yuya takes a beating and is left with his life points hanging by a thread, holding on with just 450. When all seems lost, Yuya shows he has tricks up his sleeve too. He summons Odd Eyes and, out of nowhere, uses a Pendulum card to perform a fusion summon without needing the polymerization card. The guy basically invented a new way to play. Rune Eye's Pendulum Dragon emerges, attacking multiple times and destroying Gong's monster, only for Gong to revive it instantly. With the crowd showing up to cheer him on, Yuya bets everything on a single card. He activates a trap that lets him draw one card. If it's a strong monster, he loses on the spot. It's all or nothing. He gets lucky, draws the right card, and performs another fusion summon. This time, he creates Beast Eye's Pendulum Dragon, an even more sinister monster. With a devastating attack, Beast Eyes obliterates Susanoo, and its effect drops Gong's life points to 0. At the end, the two friends share a handshake, showing that their friendship is stronger than ever. Meanwhile, the mysterious Declan watches from a distance, assembling an elite team called the Lancers. It seems this championship was just a warm-up for something much bigger. On the day of the Arc Lead Championship, the Yusho crew is pumped. Declan Akaba of the Leo Corporation makes his entrance as the star of the event. The guy is a legend who already mastered all 3 divisions before turning pro at 15. Yuya, on the other hand, arrives late and nearly gets into a fight, but manages to save himself. At the opening ceremony, he's called up to read the duelist's oath. The kid panics, forgets his lines, but then gives a heartfelt speech about overcoming the bullying of being a coward's son and finding joy in dueling.
Some kids used to tease me by saying I was a coward like my father. Someday, I'm going to become a great duel-tainer like my father was.
The entire stadium gives him a standing ovation, including Declan himself. Soon after, the first round matchups are announced. Zuzu will fight Julia, Gong will face the brute from before, and Sora is up against Shay. The first match of the day is Frederick's, who secures a hard-fought victory for Yusho. In the duel between Zuzu and Julia, both go all out with fusion summons. Julia with her Gem Knights and Zuzu debuting Bloom Diva the Melodious Choir, which has an overpowered effect of reflecting damage. Zuzu wins, and Julia, humbled, gives Zuzu the Crystal Rose card as a gesture of respect. And finally, we get to our protagonist duel. Now it's Yuya versus Silvio. Silvio now has Pendulum cards too, and uses a Yosenju deck to make life difficult for the protagonist, wiping Yuya's entire field with a Yosen Lost Tornado combo, even sending his Pendulum Magicians back to the deck, but Yuya smiles. The guy loves a challenge. Yuya responds in style. He performs a fusion summon mid-battle and brings out Beast Eye's Pendulum Dragon, the first major evolution of his Ace Dragon. Yuya wins, and Declan immediately orders Silvio's cards to be confiscated to begin mass production. Yuya has barely finished his duel, and is already reflecting on life, wondering if that Pendulum battle brought him any closer to his father. Meanwhile, the announcer Nico Smiley reveals the next match. Sora Purse of the Yusho Duel School versus Shay Obsidian of the Leo Institute. The crowd goes wild for Sora, who waves back with a friendly smile, but Yuya and Zuzu have a bad feeling. Isn't this Shay the guy who was attacking the LID students? And why did Julia, who should know this, act like nothing happened, almost as if her memory was wiped MIB style? Julia remembers Shay's super powerful Exus monster and warns Sora to be careful. Up in the control room, the big boss Declan is watching everything. He even offered a Pendulum card to Shay, who coldly refused. But Declan doesn't care. He just wants to watch the fireworks and test Shay's power. The chosen battleground is Neo Heartland City, and the choice visibly rattles Shay. The duel begins, and Sora tries his classic catchphrase, but Shay just stands there like a statue, totally killing the vibe. Awkwardly, Sora asks the crowd to chant along with him. On his turn, he summons an army of cuteness, Flufal Bear and Flufal Sheep. The kids and girls in the audience go crazy. Instead of playing, Shay starts a super heavy monologue about his homeland, which was turned into a battlefield. When he finally makes a move, he summons Raid Raptor, vanishing Lenius, and destroys Sora's teddy bear. making a little girl cry, but Sora activates a trap, gets his bear back, and even draws a card. Soon after, Sora puts on a Yuta-style show and fusion summons Fright for Bear, a nightmare version of the stuffed animal. He attacks, destroys Shay's monster, and absorbs it to get stronger, but Shay activates a trap and reclaims his monster. The guy is prepared. After another speech about survival, Shay summons 3 vanishing Lanius at once and performs an Exis summon, bringing out Raid Raptor Rise Falcon. The Falcon only has 100 attack, and Sora even mocks it. Its effect copies the attack of all of the opponent's monsters. It powers up to 2700 attack and wipes Sora's field, sending all the cute critters to oblivion. Sora is knocked to the ground but gets up with a psychotic smile, saying that now the real fun begins. He uses Fright for Factory and fusion summons Fright for Leo, another monster that looks like it crawled out of a horror movie and terrifies the children in the audience. Seeing the new threat, Shay does the obvious. He bails. He hops on his falcon and flies off through the city. Sora thinks he chickened out, but Shay is actually hunting for an action card, and he finds one. With Mirror Barrier, he negates the lion's destruction effect. The guy is a parkour master. Sora attacks, but Shay activates a trap that protects his monster and even boosts its attack. Sora gets so pissed he throws a tantrum, something we've never seen before. On his turn, Shay uses his falcon's effect again, absorbing the Leo's power and climbing to 3500 attack. The attack is brutal, and even though Sora grabs an action card to defend himself, Shay has a counter trap up his sleeve to negate everything. Sora's field is cleared once again. Now Sora is dead serious. He summons Fright for Sheep, which has a killer effect. When it attacks, the opponent can't use spells or traps. Checkmate, right? Wrong. The sheep destroys the falcon, but Shay activates the spell Ranked Up Magic Raptor's Force, which revives his monster and evolves it into an even stronger form, Raid Raptor Blaze Falcon.
Raid Raptor Blaze Falcon!
That's when things get ugly. The Blaze Falcon can attack directly, and Sora takes a heavy hit that brings down an entire building on top of him. He escapes with acrobatics, but then comes the second effect. The Falcon can destroy one of the opponent's monsters. And yes, Shay had another trap ready to ensure the destruction. It's at this point that Sora's mask falls off. He reveals his sadistic side, admitting that he and his friends hunted Shay's people for pure entertainment in a hunting game. With a crazed look in his eyes, Sora summons Fright for Chimera, a bizarre fusion of all his monsters. The Chimera destroys Shay's falcon and revives it on his side of the field. He's about to win using his enemy's own weapon, but Shay has one last card, another rank up magic. He steals the falcon back and evolves it once more into Raid Raptor Revolution Falcon. With a final devastating effect, the new falcon destroys the Chimera and zeroes out Sora's life points. The crowd falls silent. Defeated, Sora calls Shay X's scum and passes out. What a dark turn of events. Yuya is horrified by the brutal duel between Sora and Shay, while Sora recovers in the hospital. Zuzu reveals to Yuya that the mysterious duelist who attacked Silvio is Yuto, a lookalike of Yuya from another dimension. Yuto breaks into the hospital to find Sora and demands to know where a girl named Lulu is. Sora, who is recovering, reveals the sinister information that people are turned into cards by their enemies. He challenges Yuto to a duel and escapes. Yuya and his friends rush to find him. The duel between Yuto and Sora begins. Yuto summons his ace, Exis monster, Dark Rebellion Exis Dragon, and attempts to defeat Sora. Yuya arrives mid-fight and sees his lookalike dueling his friend. To protect Sora, Yuya joins the duel and challenges Yuto, vowing not to let anyone else get hurt. He summons Odd Eye's Pendulum Dragon. When Yuya's and Yuto's dragons face off, a strange energy crackles between them. Yuto uses a trap that locks down Yuya's dragon, but Sora shoves Yuya aside and reveals a shocking truth. He and Yuto are from other dimensions, the X's dimension and the fusion dimension. Sora explains that he belongs to the elite of Duel Academy, which trains dual soldiers. Suddenly, his dual disc glows and he vanishes, forcibly returned to his home dimension. Yuto explains to Yuya that there are 4 dimensions, Fusion, Exis, Synchro, and Standard, and that Duel Academy invaded his city, Heartland, turning its people into cards. Yuya is horrified, declaring that dueling should never be used as a weapon. His words resonate with Yuto. Just then, a duelist on a motorcycle appears, revealing himself to be a third identical copy of Yuya and Yuto. He is Yugo. Meanwhile, at Declan's corporation, Shay is on edge, ready to move out because he thinks the fusion dimension is invading. But Declan, cool as ever, tells everyone to stand down. He's the one who runs this city, and he'll handle things his way. Back at the park, the duel begins. Yuto versus Yugo. Yugo Yuto immediately summons a Synchro monster, High Speedroid Kendama, and attacks Yuto directly without so much as a hello. Yuto doesn't take it lying down and responds with an X's summon, bringing out the Phantom Knights of Breaksword and destroying Yugo's monster. The fight becomes increasingly personal. Yugo brings out Clear Wing Synchro Dragon.
Clear Wing Synchro Dragon!
And Yuto answers with his ace, Dark Rebellion X's Dragon.
Dark Rebellion exceeds Dragon!
As the dragons face off, a bizarre energy overtakes both Yuto and Yugo. Their eyes glow, and they go into a berserker rage, screaming that they'll destroy everything. A desperate Yuya jumps into the middle of the fight, giving his speech about how dueling is meant to make people smile. Yuto snaps out of it, but Yugo remains possessed. He uses a wild strategy, sacrificing one of his monsters to boost his dragon's attack to 4,500. The attack is devastating. Yuto shoves Yuya out of the way to save him, and takes the full force of the blow, losing the duel. Lying on the ground, Yuto hands his card, Dark Rebellion, to Yuya, and asks him to bring smiles to the world with his duels. And then, he disappears in a flash of blue light. To top it all off, we are introduced to a fourth guy with the same face as everyone else. Yuri, the main villain's new pawn. After falling into a coma, Yuya awakens and explains everything to Zuzu. The 4 dimensions, the war between the Fusion and X's dimensions, the origins of Sora and Yugo, and the existence of Lulu, Zuzu's doppelganger. A flashback reveals the lookalike with a sinister smile in the Fusion dimension, where Sora is now imprisoned. Yuya and Zuzu run to the stadium to watch the fight. They witness a bizarre duel involving Iggy Arlo, a duelist who uses violence to grab action cards. Yuya is shocked by the brutality, which reminds him of how Yuto disappeared. To make matters worse, Yuya's next opponent is Iggy himself. With Yuto's last words in his mind, Yuya faces the duel, determined to show that dueling is about entertainment, not violence. The duel starts on a bamboo field, with Yuya trying to have fun but still shaken by Yuto's disappearance. Iggy isn't playing around and corners Yuya, leaving him with only 100 life points. That's when everything changes. Yuya snaps, his eyes turn red, and he seems possessed, speaking in a cold voice. He does something unexpected and performs an X's summon, bringing Yuto's monster to the field, Dark Rebellion X's Dragon.
Dark Rebellion exceeds Dragon!
Yuya's dragon drains the power from Iggy's monster, becoming absurdly powerful, and with a single attack, it defeats his opponent. The duel ends, the stadium falls silent, and Yuya returns to normal, unable to understand the fear in his friend's eyes. After his dark victory, Yuya is in a slump. Meanwhile, Declan's team discovers footage of a girl identical to Zuzu, named Selena, who is making duelists disappear. Declan races to intercept and confront her. What follows is an epic duel. Declan faces Selena's bodyguard, Barrett, and is left with only 200 life points, but it was all part of a brilliant plan. Declan uses a combination of Pendulum, Fusion, and X's summons, turning the tables and winning the duel flawlessly. At the same time, elsewhere, Zuzu performs her own Fusion summon to win a duel, and seeing her friend having fun inspires Yuya to overcome his funk. Declan reveals to Selena that he knows her from Duel Academy in the Fusion dimension, and that he is the son of Leo Akaba, the big boss there. Declan explains that 3 years ago, he was caught in the middle of Selena's escape attempt and was teleported back to his own dimension. He explains that he has spent these years preparing to stop his father's plans to invade the other dimensions. Selena says she ran away to prove her worth and fight in the war. In a flashback, we see Declan's father, Leo Akaba, imprisoning him and saying that the war against the X's in Synchro dimensions is destiny. In the present, Declan reveals that the upcoming tournament will be a Battle Royale, so that the duelists can intercept the invaders. To make matters worse, Leo Akaba sends the obelisk force after Selena to capture her. The war is about to begin. The Battle Royale has begun, and everyone is scrambling across the city for Pendulum cards. The rule is clear. Without them, no one duels. Yuya barely finds his before he's cornered by Taka and Nagi, 2 guys from the Bandit Warrior Academy who want revenge for the friend Yuya defeated. These guys play dirty, blocking Yuya from getting action cards and using the same trash talk as his previous opponent. They perform a Pendulum summon and then a Fusion summon, putting Yuya in a tough spot.
Fujin, the Breakstorm Star!
Meanwhile, in a blizzard-themed area, Zuzu runs into Halil, a nice guy who even gives her a card so they can duel. The kid fumbles his pendulum summon and Zuzu, with the best of intentions, teaches him to use the correct zones. Little did she know, his thank you would come in the form of a beatdown. Halil uses both pendulum and fusion, leaving Zuzu's life points hanging by a thread until she slips and falls off an ice cliff. And where does she land? Right on top of Olga, who was about to duel Gong. The confusion is so great that the two duels merge into one, a 2-on-2 tag team battle. Back with Yuya, things are looking bad. The second goon, Nagi, also pulls off his pendulum fusion combo. The two of them together corner Yuya, who takes such a beating, he even passes out for a second. He's about to take the final blow from a card effect when, out of nowhere, the attack is blocked. A boy with orange hair shows up and asks if he can join the duel. The response? He takes a 2,000-point life penalty for intruding and plummets off a cliff. What an entrance. The guy's name is Dennis McField, an exchange student who clearly didn't read the event rules. He saved Yuya with the card Performage Damage Juggler, explaining he discarded it from his hand to negate the attack. Now, to everyone's surprise, the duel has become a tag team match. Yuya and Dennis versus Nagi and Taka. Meanwhile, in the blizzard area, Zuzu and Gong are also in a jam. Their opponent, Olga, Synchro summons Glacial Beast Iceberg Narwhal and goes after Zuzu, but Gong, like a true bodyguard, jumps in front and uses his super heavy samurai blowtorch to tank the damage, leaving his life points hanging by a thread. Back at the volcano, Dennis continues his show. He summons Performage Flame Eater twice to protect Yuya from fireballs, all while trying to make small talk in the middle of the fight. He then performs an X's summon and brings out Performage Trapeze Magician, an acrobatic monster that reminds Yuya of his own father. On the other side of the map, Shay simply obliterates 3 opponents at once. In the snow, Gong manages to turn the tables with his Synchro monster, but is ultimately defeated by a counterattack. Left alone, Zuzu doesn't flinch. She performs a pendulum summon, followed by a fusion summon, bringing out Bloom Diva, the melodious choir. With a brilliant strategy, she defeats Olga and using the card Defusion, separates her monsters to attack Halil with full force, winning the duel. To cap it all off, Yuya, inspired by Dennis, summons his Dark Rebellion X's Dragon. Dennis uses his Magician's effect to allow the dragon to attack twice. Yuya then activates the dragon's power, absorbing the attack of the enemy monsters and wiping them both out at once. In the end, Yuya and Dennis shake hands, already best friends. The Battle Royale kicks off and the mood darkens when Yuya runs into Shay, who accuses him of making Yuto disappear. Sora appears with a squad called the Obelisk Force, and they're here to hunt Shay. Meanwhile, Zuzu duels Dennis in a volcano area. Dennis, who acts like a magician, defeats her with a card trick. Zuzu nearly falls into a river of lava but is saved by Dennis and his monster. Just when it seems over, Zuzu's lookalike, Selena, appears and prepares to duel. The chaos continues as Yuya loses his mind watching the Obelisk Force turn a duelist into a card. He's consumed by rage, entering a state of uncontrollable fury as he screams that he will never forgive them. Meanwhile, at the volcano, Selena duels Dennis and defeats him easily. Just as she beats him, the Obelisk Force appears to capture her, but, like something out of an action movie, 2 ninjas, Sun and Moon Shadow, appear from nowhere, rescue Selena and Zuzu, and vanish. In the end, Gong finds Yuya, but he isn't himself. With a grim smile, he summons Dark Rebellion X's Dragon and faces the Obelisk Force, ready for revenge. With only 200 life points left, Yuya is hanging on by a thread. The Obelisk Force is already celebrating their victory, but he rises, possessed by fury. He draws Odd Eye's Pendulum Dragon and does the unthinkable. He uses the ability of his Pendulum Magicians to give a level to his X's monster, Dark Rebellion X's Dragon. Now with 2 level 7 monsters, he overlays the 2 dragons. From this emerges an absurd creature, Odd Eye's Rebellion Dragon, with 3,000 attack. The beast is so powerful that the shockwaves nearly knock over Gong. With a single effect, the new dragon wipes the Obelisk Force off the map, destroying their monsters and reducing all 3 of their life points to 0 at once. However, Yuya remains in his berserker state and starts walking toward a temple. When a pillar collapses, Gong throws himself in front to save him and pins him to the ground. Yuya is thrashing like a wild animal. Meanwhile, out of nowhere, Yugo appears in the iceberg area on his duel runner, completely lost. Later, in the jungle, the group manages to calm Yuya down. Aura uses her crystal apple and sees the problem. There are 2 souls inside Yuya, and a third, dark presence is trying to take over. When he wakes up back to normal, he realizes the anger he felt belonged to Yuto, whose soul now resides within him. In the iceberg area, Zuzu tries to open Selena's eyes, explaining that Duel Academy treats the invasion like a hunting game. But Selena doesn't get it. To her, they are noble warriors unifying the dimensions. To prove her point, Zuzu convinces Selena to find Shay. To buy time, they come up with a brilliant idea: switch clothes. Zuzu will act as a decoy, while Selena looks for Shay. The crowd in the stadium is furious because the screens have gone dark and no one knows what's happening in the Battle Royale. The announcer, Nico Smiley, is standing in the middle of the arena, completely lost, with no idea who's dueling or who's winning. Meanwhile, in the middle of the ice field, Dennis meets Yuri, a guy who looks just like Yuya but with a gothic vibe. Yuri is looking for Zuzu, and Dennis points her out, but to their surprise, she's already surrounded by the obelisk force. Yuri is not happy about this, and when two duelists from LID appear out of nowhere, he simply turns them into cards as if it were nothing. What a sinister guy. Zuzu is shocked to see what he's done. Yuri approaches her, introduces himself as a soldier from Duel Academy, and says he's there to take her to the professor. He then casually admits that he was the one who kidnapped two other girls, Lulu and Rin, because he was ordered to. Zuzu, obviously, doesn't trust this lunatic one bit and prepares to fight. Cut to the volcano area, where Yugo is riding his D-wheel. He sees the obelisk force taking down LID's senior team and turning them into cards. Yugo doesn't think twice, crashes the duel, and summons his monster, Clearwing Synchro Dragon.
Clearwing Synchro Dragon!
Wiping the floor with the Academy soldiers. In a control room, Declan sees everything and realizes the Synchro dimension is not their enemy. Meanwhile, Yuya is having an existential crisis, thinking about Yuto's soul and the darkness inside him. Zuzu is on the run from Yuri, who has now summoned a bizarre purple dragon. Just as she's about to be caught, her bracelet glows. Yuri vanishes, and Yugo appears in his place, mistaking her for the girl named Rin. Before they can figure anything out, the bracelet glows again, and they both disappear. To top it all off, we see Shay being defeated by Sora right in front of Selena. The junior youth class final has begun, but the focus is now elsewhere. After defeating Shay, Sora goes after Selena, but she manages to escape with the help of the ninjas Sun and Moon Shadow. Sun stays behind to hold Sora off, while Moon helps Selena and Shay escape. But their getaway doesn't last long, as they run straight into three members of the obelisk force. Dennis, who is hiding, watches from a distance. A 3-on-3 duel begins. Moon Shadow becomes the team's shield, using his traps to negate attacks and taking all the damage to protect Selena and Shay. Meanwhile, Reed and Trout, who were looking for a safe place for Aura, stumble upon the fight. Seeing their friends in trouble, they decide to jump in, even though it costs them a 2,000 life point penalty just for interfering. The two pull off an incredible combo, clearing the obelisk force's field and dealing some serious damage. For a moment, it looks like they might turn the tide, but the joy is short-lived. The Academy soldiers activate their own traps, reviving their monsters and counterattacking with full force. The result is tragic. First Reed and then Trout are defeated and turned into cards. Watching his friends get carded is the last straw for Yuya. He snaps, a dark aura envelops him, and he goes into a berserker rage. To make matters worse, Sora defeats and turns Sun Shadow into a card as well. In the midst of the chaos, Silvio shows up with his usual swagger to save the day, only to be hit with the same 2,000 life points penalty. Yuya, however, manages to calm himself, remembering Yuto's words. He confronts Sora and challenges him to a duel, promising to bring his true smile back. The competition comes to an end. Riley suddenly appears and wins the tournament. Meanwhile, the brawl between Silvio, Selena, and the Obelisk Force continues. Silvio performs a Pendulum summon, but the Obelisk Force retaliates with a fusion monster that slashes everyone's life points. Shay enters the fray with a vengeance, using a Pendulum summon and an Exus summon to bring out Raid Raptor Revolution Falcon, which completely annihilates the entire Obelisk Force. The final fight is between Yuya and Sora. The duel is intense, with Sora declaring that dueling is war, but just when all seems lost for Yuya, he channels his rage and friendship to summon a new dragon, Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon, a monster that is both Exus and and Pendulum. The tournament timer runs out, Sora vanishes, and Declan appears, revealing that the whole thing was a test to form an elite squad, the Lancers. Yuya confronts Declan about the war and Zuzu's disappearance. Declan bluntly admits he knew about the attack and used the tournament to find warriors to fight Duel Academy. Selena reveals that she and Zuzu switched places, and Zuzu was captured instead of her. Blinded by rage, Yuya challenges Declan to a duel. Declan activates a field that recreates Heartland City, Shay's hometown that was destroyed by the Academy. Declan demonstrates his superiority, pulling off a fusion, synchro, and exo-summon combo all at once, and destroys Yuya's monsters. Yuya, driven by anger, performs 2 fusion summons, wiping Declan's field. The duel ends with Declan unscathed, revealing that Zuzu is alive and has been captured. He makes it clear, if Yuya wants to save her, he'll have to prove he's worthy by fighting him. He has a flashback where he was monitoring Zuzu. Suddenly, Yuri vanishes, and Yugo hugs Zuzu, making them both disappear as well. It's like an episode of The Twilight Zone. Declan concludes she wasn't captured, but who knows where she went. Back to the duel, Declan says that if Yuya wants to save Zuzu, he'll have to get through him. And then the show begins. The guy performs a pendulum summon, revives a monster, sacrifices another to banish Yuya's dragon, and as if that weren't enough, uses a monster from the graveyard to perform a fusion summon. He pulls off so many combos, it looks like a fighting game. Declan's new monster, Triple D Wave High King Caesar, destroys Yuya's last dragon, leaving his field empty. Declan taunts him, and Yuya nearly goes into berserker mode, complete with a red eye and dark aura, but manages to calm himself down. Then comes the counterattack. Yuya performs his own pendulum summon, and in a masterful turn summons Yuto's dragon, Dark Rebellion X's dragon. He uses the dragon's effect twice, boosting its attack to nearly 5,000, but Declan is clever and survives with a sliver of life points. Then Declan copies the play and performs a Pendulum X's summon, bringing out Triple D Duo Don King Kali Yuga, a monster that basically hits the mute button on every other card on the field. He destroys Yuya's dragon and taunts him again, but Yuya doesn't give up. He summons his most powerful monster yet, Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon, an insane fusion of Pendulum and X's. But Declan is a wicked genius. He activates a sequence of traps that negates Yuya's power and buffs his own monster. Yuya's dragon is destroyed and he loses the duel. In the end, Declan says Yuya is naive but has potential. He officially forms the Lancers, a squad to jump between dimensions. Yuya, devastated, swears he will become stronger to save Zuzu. The championship awards ceremony begins, but the atmosphere is tense. The announcer calls up the winners, but the crowd is like, "Her? Why is Silvio up there? He lost!" The audience starts booing, accusing him of using his politician father's influence to get ahead. Silvio can't take it, grabs the microphone and yells that he participated in a repechage round and is now one of the Lancers. Before anyone can understand what a Lancer is, the broadcast is cut by Declan's mother, Henrietta. She drops the news of the century. The championship has been cancelled. The reason? An invasion from another dimension. To prove it, she shows footage of Duel Academy soldiers turning people into cards. Panic erupts, but then comes the PR masterstroke. Henrietta shows clips of Shay and Yuya crushing the invaders and presents them as heroes. The Lancers, protectors of the city. The crowd, which was booing seconds ago, is now chanting, "Lancers! Lancers!" Declan appears on the big screen and confirms it. Peace is over, and the Lancers will lead the war. Backstage, the U-Show crew confronts Yuya about Zuzu. He can barely speak and just hands over her uniform. Aura then explains the soap opera level plot twist. The girl who was with them was Selena, Zuzu's doppelganger. They switched places in the middle of the tournament. Zuzu's father freaks out and the kids blame Yuya for not protecting her. That's when Yuya's mother, Yoko, steps in. She takes everyone to an abandoned arcade and reveals her secret past. She was Loco Yoko, leader of an all-girl biker gang. She challenges Yuya to a duel on a D-wheel to teach him a lesson. During the fight, she explains that she used to duel just to brawl, until a mysterious man showed up and taught her that dueling was for fun, using the card Smile World.
The spell card Smile World.
In the present, she uses the same card, steals Yuya's monsters, and leaves his life points hanging by a thread. In the end, she reveals the identity of the man who changed her life, Yusho Sakaki, Yuya's missing father. That's how she fell in love with him. What a way to tell the story of how she met his dad, huh? Yoko explains that Yuya is acting just like she used to, so focused on one goal that he's forgetting everything else. She reminds him that he's not alone in this. Everyone there wants Zuzu back. With the support of his friends, Yuya's spirits finally finally lift. He promises to honor his father's legacy and perform an entertainment duel. He even uses his mother's Smile World card against her, making all the monsters smile, including Odd Eye's Pendulum Dragon. Yuya wins the duel spectacularly, and in the end, Yoko gives him the card, a gift Yusho left for him. Later, the scene cuts to the Lancers meeting. Declan, the leader, reveals that the team is getting a new member, his younger brother Riley, a child. Shay is furious, thinking the kid will slow them down. The plan isn't to invade Duel Academy just yet. First, they will go to the Synchro dimension to recruit allies. Selena, who knows the Academy's ways, convinces Shay that this is the best strategy. And for the final bombshell, Declan reveals that Zuzu is in the Synchro dimension. With everyone on board, they receive new duel discs and teleport to their new mission. Zuzu wakes up and the first thing she sees is a guy with Yuya's face right in front of hers. She freaks out, shoves the poor guy down a hill, and he lands on top of his stylish motorcycle, the Duel Runner. Zuzu mixes up Yugo's name and he gets pissed.
My name is Yugo, not Yo-Yo. Get it right!
Slowly, they piece it together. This Yuri guy kidnapped Rin, a friend of Yugo's, who looks just like Zuzu, and also Lulu from the Exis dimension. Yugo recounts in a flashback how he saw Yuri, a guy identical to him, take Rin away. After being blinded by a light, he ended up in the Exis dimension, and mistaking Yuto for the culprit started a fight. Zuzu explains that Yuto is also a victim, and that the situation is like a multiverse of madness. There are 4 versions of them scattered across 4 dimensions. That's when the real trouble starts. They are in a fancy part of the city, and a rich woman calls the cops sector security just because they're commons, the city's poor underclass. New Domino is divided between the 1% topsiders who have all the money and the 99% commons who live in poverty. To avoid getting arrested, they flee on the Duel Runner. Yugo reveals that his dream is to be like Jack Atlas, a hero of the commons who became the king of duels. In the middle of the chase, a police officer catches up to them and forces a duel, but it's not just any duel. The roads transform into a racing track and a voice announces, "Turbo Duel, acceleration. If they lose, it's all over." And that's where we pick up the story, right at Sector Security headquarters, where a high-ranking officer plays chess while monitoring a pursuit. He moves a white pawn, getting the green light for a forced duel. Yugo starts strong, performing a synchro summon and bringing out high-speed Roid Kendama, which immediately inflicts 500 damage on the officer. To make things even crazier, a helicopter appears with a reporter, Melissa Trail, broadcasting the chase live to the entire city. The officer doesn't hold back and also performs a synchro summon, bringing out Goyo Chaser, and this monster has a dirty trick. When it destroys a monster, it steals it for its side of the field. Basically, a monster kleptomania. He steals Yugo's kendama and even uses the poor thing to attack directly. Yugo, annoyed, performs another synchro summon and brings out high-speed Roid Chanbara, which attacks twice and turns the tables. But the officer activates a trap and revives Goyo Chaser. The chase gets insane, with Yugo even riding on the wall to overtake the officer, just like in an action movie. The officer summons Goyo Predator, which also has a habit of stealing monsters, and takes Yugo's Chanbara. The situation becomes critical, and the security chief is already declaring victory, moving his white queen for a checkmate, but Yugo had an ace up his sleeve. He activates the trap Dice Roll Battle, which lets him synchro summon from the graveyard, and out comes his ace monster, Clear Wing Synchro Dragon. The dragon's effect is insane. It negates the officer's monster's effect, destroys it, and gains its attack points. With immense power, the dragon sweeps the officer's field, wiping out his life points. Yugo wins, but the escape isn't over. He runs into a police blockade and, for a grand finale, uses a van as a ramp and flies over everyone. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, Yuya and his crew arrive in the dimension and come face to face with security. And guess what? They're mistaken for Yugo and Zuzu. Silvio, who thinks he's the greatest thing since sliced bread, yells, "Bring it on!" and starts a duel. The result? He gets one-turn knockout and is subdued before he even knows what hit him. Selena, seeing the situation, realizes these guys aren't messing around. Yuya tries to talk his way out of it, saying there's been a misunderstanding, but it's no use. He's forced to duel, but he does it in his own style, duel-taining, and then a bunch of dancing hippo tokens to serve as shields, turning the conflict into a real show. The officer, having no patience for the antics, performs a synchro summon, and brings out Lord, which has an annoying effect that destroys a monster and inflicts damage. Security is confused by the action cards Yuya uses to defend himself, but their chief, watching from his command center, is smart and orders his men to use them too. An officer grabs one and reduces the attack of Yuya's hippo to 0, destroying it immediately after. Meanwhile, Selena isn't playing games. She faces another officer and, with a smile on her face, performs a fusion summon, bringing out her Lunalite cat dancer.
What's a fusion monster?
She uses a couple of effects to double the monster's attack to 4,800 and finishes the officer in a single blow, proving that all the security decks are the same, like school uniforms. Even with Selena's victory, the situation gets worse. More officers appear, completely surrounding the group. Back at headquarters, the chief starts to realize something is wrong. Fusion? Pendulum? He gets it. These aren't the ones from yesterday. Just when all seems lost, with the police closing in, the roar of a D-wheel is heard. A mysterious figure appears out of nowhere, summons a wicked monster called Assault Blackwing, Raikiri the Rain Shower, and chaos erupts. Before security can figure out what happened, Yuya's team is rescued by a biker gang and vanishes into the dust. Cut to Yugo and Zuzu, hiding in an alley. Yugo plays the protector and pulls her into a hug so no one sees them. But Zuzu isn't in the mood for romance. She's focused on the interdimensional war and tries to warn him that Duel Academy is coming to take over everything. Meanwhile, Gong and Dennis are trying to find the others by performing magic on the street. Dennis, being the showman he is, loves the attention, but Gong is stone-faced, thinking it's all a waste of time. We find out the savior of the day is a guy named Crow, who takes Yuya and the others to his hideout. He explains he helped because he saw Yuya protecting some kids and thought, this guy can't be bad. During dinner, Silvio, ever the modest one, introduces himself as the undefeated duelist of Paradise City and calls Yuya his apprentice, which earns him a what look from Yuya. Crow is left scratching his head, not understanding any of this dimension talk. Things heat up when Crow's foster kids, Frank and Taryn, come home after stealing food. They mention seeing a guy who looks like Yuya and a girl who looks like Selena causing a scene at a restaurant. Yuya and Selena immediately realize it's Yugo and Zuzu. Crow, though worried about security, understands the urgency and decides to help them find their friends. On the other side of the city, Dennis and Gong's show attracts a crowd and even the local news. To spice things up, Dennis challenges Gong to a duel, casting himself as the hero. Gong, who has no patience for this nonsense, gets angry and plays along. The duel is a spectacle, with Dennis using his tricks and Gong showing his raw power. In the end, Gong turns the tables and wins. Just as they're counting the money from their performance, a well-dressed man appears and invites them to meet some real duelists. That stuffy prosecutor, Lucas Swank, drags Dennis and Gong into a dark alley and throws them into an underground dueling arena, a place where illegal bets are made and the brawls are brutal. And who do they find there? None other than Shay Obsidian, who's just steamrolling the competition. He summons his Raid Raptor Rise Falcon and wipes his opponent off the map in the blink of an eye, but complains that no one there is a match for him. The Lancers' reunion isn't exactly friendly. Shay and Dennis immediately start trading barbs, mocking each other's exes monsters, while Gong tries to keep the peace. Lucas explains that the duels here are held on tricked-out motorcycles, duel runners, and whoever wins 10 fights in a row earns a spot in the Friendship Cup, the city's biggest tournament. The grand prize? A chance to face the Duel King, the legendary Jack Atlas. Meanwhile, at Crow's place, the mood is tense. Selena and Silvio are sick of waiting and decide to head out on their own to find their friends. Yuya tries to stop them, but only manages to hold back little Riley, getting left behind in frustration. Back in the arena, Dennis, ever the showman, immediately accepts the challenge to fight Shay. The rule is bizarre. Dennis starts with 4,000 life points, but Shay, as the undefeated champion, starts with a measly 1,000. The duel kicks off at full throttle. Shay goes all out, using his monster's effect to burn 1,600 of Dennis's life points right off the bat. Unfazed, Dennis responds with his own ex's monster, Performapal Trapeze Magician, and nearly brings Shay's life to 0. The fight is an insane exchange of blows. Shay proves he's not messing around and uses a rank-up magic spell card to evolve his monster and clear Dennis's field. But just when all seems lost, Dennis pulls out his ace in the hole. Pendulum summoning. He summons 3 monsters at once, leaving the crowd in shock. News of this new summoning method quickly reaches the ears of the head of sector security, who dispatches his troops to investigate the arena. Things are about to get serious. The underground duel between Dennis and Shay heats up, with Dennis showcasing his pendulum and X's summoning skills. Shay survives the onslaught and manages to steal one of Dennis's monsters to summon his own dragon, Raid Raptor Revolution Falcon. But the fight is cut short when sector security raids the arena and arrests the duelists. Meanwhile, Yuya duels Crow over their conflicting dueling philosophies and also gets arrested. In the midst of the chaos, little Riley is rescued by Moonshadow, leaving Yuya utterly devastated. The situation is tense as they are all taken to a sinister prison known as the Facility. Their duel discs are confiscated, but their decks are returned. There, they reunite with Gong and learn the rules of the prison, where cards are used as currency. Yuya, disgusted by the situation, refuses to accept the rules and is challenged by the prison's top dog, an unbeatable old-timer named Chojiro. The duel begins, and Chojiro shows he's no joke. He summons a powerful Synchro monster and deals some initial damage to Yuya. Yuya tries to fight back with his Pendulum summon, but Chojiro cancels the move, leaving Yuya in a tight spot. Chojiro reveals that after being humiliated in the past, he lost faith in entertainment dueling, but Yuya refuses to give up. Yuya uses a brilliant combo to protect himself from the damage, and the crowd goes wild. Seeing the audience's reaction, Chojiro remembers when he used to duel for fun. He decides to risk it all, draws a card, and once again shouts, "Enjoy!" Yuya seizes the opportunity, performs his Pendulum summon, and with Odd Eye's Pendulum Dragon, defeats Chojiro.
It deals double the damage to finish you off.
In the end, the villain is redeemed, smiling as the entire prison chants, "Enjoy!" The hero who was lost had returned, thanks to Yuya. A redeemed Chojiro organizes a feast in the prison, but the good mood is short-lived as Crow reveals an escape plan. He distances himself from Yuya, stating they are no longer allies. Meanwhile, we get a glimpse of Zuzu, who is on the run with Yugo, and the clueless guy signs her up for a tournament. Back in the prison, a 3-on-1 action duel begins with Yuya, Chojiro, and Silvio. However, Yuya is distracted and not invested in the duel. It turns out the fight is just a diversion for Crow, Shinji, and Shay's escape plan. The prison erupts into total chaos. In an act of gratitude, Chojiro holds the line to buy Yuya time. Yuya, Chojiro, and Silvio escape through the ventilation ducts, and the duel ends with a fireworks display that seals their getaway. After some shoving and pushing, they finally make it out and find themselves on the prison roof. Terrible sense of direction, Silvio. To make matters worse, 3 sector security guards, the Stomp Troopers, appear out of nowhere and surround them. Silvio, full of bravado, decides to take on all 3 at once in a duel. Yuya tries to warn him it's a bad idea, but it's too late. The first guard immediately fills his field with 3 Synchro monsters, the Goyo Defenders. Silvio tries to attack but only takes damage and decides the best strategy is to run. Genius. With no way out, Chojiro simply grabs Silvio and jumps off the building, with Yuya right behind him. Mid-air, Yuya summons a trampoline-like monster to cushion everyone's fall. Yes, that happened. The chase continues through a tunnel, and Gong appears to help, only to have his monsters stolen by the enemy. Just when all seems lost, Shay swoops in from the sky, joins the duel, and in a masterstroke, uses the monsters the guards stole to perform an Exis summon, bringing out his Raid Raptor Rise Falcon. With a single attack, he wipes all the monsters and guards off the map. Game over. The rest of the crew shows up, and just as they think they're about to escape, bam! Searchlights in their faces. They're captured by Jean-Michel Roger, the head of security. Taken before the High Council, Declan Akaba appears and explains everything about the Dimensional War. The suit's solution? Throw everyone into a tournament called the Friendship Cup. And to top it all off, Yuya discovers that Zuzu is also participating in that he has been chosen to fight the champion Jack Atlas in the opening match. No pressure. Things kick off with a huge party at the Duel Palace. Zuzu and Yugo arrive in the middle of the commotion for the Friendship Cup's opening ceremony. Meanwhile, Yuya is in a waiting room contemplating life and how Crow called Jack Atlas a traitor. He chats with a boy there who describes Jack as an absolute king, the strongest duelist in the world. Back in the arena, the announcer Melissa introduces the king's opponent, Yuya Sakaki. The poor kid awkwardly gets into his duel runner, barely knowing how to ride the thing. Zuzu sees it all and is in shock. Yugo explains that this exhibition match is just a show to glorify Jack. The opponent is basically a punching bag, a sacrifice for the king to display his power. Then, with an entrance worthy of a rock star, Jack Atlas appears. He's pure swagger, pointing to the sky and announcing he'll finish Yuya in 3 turns. The duel begins. On his first turn, Jack quickly summons Red Wyvern and ends his turn. Now it's Yuya's time to shine, and shine he does. He performs a Pendulum summon and brings out 4 monsters at once. The crowd goes wild. Without wasting a moment, he uses 2 for a fusion summon and creates Rune Eyes Pendulum Dragon. Then, he uses the other 2 for an Exis summon and brings out Dark Rebellion Exis Dragon. In a single turn, he's used 3 different summoning methods. Yuya uses Dark Rebellion's effect to drain power from Jack's monster, boosting his dragon to 4,300 attack. He attacks and bam! He drops Jack's life to a mere 300 points. He goes in for the finish with Rune Eyes, but Jack, the sly fox, uses an action card and a trap to survive, recover his monsters, and even gain life. The king then delivers a lecture calling Yuya's dueling selfish, not entertainment. He then summons his ace monster, Scarlight Red Dragon Archfiend. With a single effect, he destroys both of Yuya's dragons, inflicts damage, and with a direct attack, wipes out our hero's life points. A crushing defeat. The dust settles, and the scoreboard is clear. Jack Atlas is victorious. The crowd goes wild, chanting the champion's name. Jack, with all his swagger, stands over Yuya, who is knocked out on the ground. Backstage, Zuzu panics and tries to run onto the track, but is blocked by security and Jack's fans. As Yuya is placed on a stretcher, he mutters that he won't let anyone make fun of the dueling style his father taught him. One of the paramedics, Sam, overhears this and is intrigued. Suddenly, Yugo and Zuzu are approached by some men in white suits and dark glasses, like the Men in Black. They claim to be from the High Council and take the 2 away, overriding the normal security. Yuya wakes up in a 5-star hotel room, completely confused. Suddenly, 5 holographic figures appear, introducing themselves as the High Council. They explain the rules of the game. The 16 Friendship Cup participants stay in this luxury hotel, but anyone who loses is kicked out immediately. Yuya's duel was just an exhibition, so he's still in the running. Before Yuya can ask about Zuzu, they vanish. To make matters worse, his room door is locked. Yuya starts pounding on it, but Sam, who is on the other side, doesn't answer. Frustration hits hard. Yuya recalls the beating he took, realizing Jack had manipulated him the entire duel, giving him false hope before crushing him. His confidence in his entertainment dueling is shattered. Then, a card slides under the door. It's from Sam. He asks Yuya to give that card to Jack. After Yuya wins the Friendship Cup, Sam tells his story. Jack was a hero to the commons, a guy from the slums who won it all. But fame went to his head. He got rich, turned his back on his origins, and became arrogant. One day, he humiliated Sam by giving him a useless 0-attack monster, saying it suited him. The city is divided. As reporter Melissa Trail announces the start of the tournament, the crowd argues. Some love Jack, others call him a traitor. Sam places all his hopes in Yuya, who now carries the weight of a revenge that isn't his. The first duel is announced. Gong Strong versus Crow. Gong wants to clear Yuya's name, and Crow wants to teach Jack a lesson. And Yuya, locked in his room, wonders if he has the strength to defeat the king. The Friendship Cup begins for real. The first match is between Crow, master of the Black Wings, and Gong Strong, with his super heavy samurais. Gong has never been in a turbo duel before and is a bit lost on the track, but his mission is clear: avenge Yuya's defeat and show the power of his fighting style. The duel starts with Crow making the first move. He quickly summons 2 Synchro monsters, Assault Blackwing Kuniyoshi the Timid and Assault Blackwing Kunisada the Timid, and uses their effects to burn some of Gong's life points. It's a setup move with no direct attacks. Gong responds in kind, establishing an ironclad defense with his magnet monsters, creating a barrier that prevents Crow from attacking. The guy is a true wall. Crow is unfazed. He summons his ace monster, Assault Blackwing Raikiri the Rain Shower, shatters Gong's defense, and attacks directly, dealing massive damage. Gong, showing his samurai honor, refuses to grab an action card and takes the hit head on. Then comes the turning point. Gong performs a Pendulum summon, a rare and powerful move, and brings his own Synchro monster to the field, Super Heavy Samurai Beast Kyubi.
Super Heavy Samurai Beast Kyubi!
The monster enters in defense mode with a staggering 5,200 defense, an impenetrable wall, and it doesn't stop there. QB attacks and destroys Crow's monster. Gong activates another effect to attack again, but Crow at the last second grabs an action card and manages to escape. With only 100 life points left, Crow is hanging on by a thread. He makes an all-or-nothing play, sacrificing almost all his life to bring back a monster, and then he starts an insane combo, a seemingly endless sequence of Synchro summons. He uses 3 Synchro monsters to summon an even stronger one, Assault Blackwing Kusanagi the Gathering Storm. With an incredible 6,000 attack, Kusanagi attacks Gong's wall, and with its piercing battle damage effect, it breaks through the defense and wipes out Gong's life points. A spectacular comeback victory. The dust from Gong and Crow's duel has barely settled, and while the crowd celebrates Crow's victory, Yuya has a bad feeling. He knows that losers are sent straight to a very unpleasant place, a sinister prison called the Facility. Suddenly his room door opens, and who should appear but Chojuro. The guy managed to sneak out of his own suite by bribing a guard with a rare card, like a VIP pass to freedom. He heard a rumor that losers are taken to an underground garbage processing plant, where they are forced to work until they drop. Basically, the top 1% live in luxury and dump their trash below, and the bottom 99% have to deal with it. Losing in the Friendship Cup is like being thrown from heaven straight to hell. Yuya panics, thinking about Gong. To make matters worse, the next duel is announced. Shinji versus Riley Akaba, a child. The kid is terrified and runs to hide with Yuya. That's when Declan, the ice-cold older brother, shows up. Yuya goes ballistic and confronts Declan, asking what kind of monster would put his own little brother in a deadly tournament. Declan, cold as ever, says Riley needs the experience and that he is the key to the war against Duel Academy. But Riley, despite his fear, surprises everyone. He refuses to fight Shinji because the guy was nice to him, and the weirdest part? Declan accepts it. He even seems pleased that Riley made a decision on his own and sends Moonshadow to fight in his place. In the middle of this, a flashback reveals that Riley is a war orphan who was trained to be like a robot with no will of his own. It seems Declan's plan is working in ways he didn't even expect. Meanwhile, the announcer is more lost than ever, trying to figure out why Riley suddenly turned into a ninja. The stadium is in chaos. The crowd is baffled by the last-minute swap, but the show must go on. On one side, Shinji Weber, the darling of the commons. On the other hand, Moonshadow, the ninja who parachuted in to take little Riley's place. Moonshadow starts in true ninja style, full of tricks and action cards to relentlessly attack Shinji with his Twilight Ninja Shingetsu. He's dominating the field and keeping Shinji on the defensive, but Shinji is no pushover. He draws his Battle Wasps and Synchro summons. Battle Wasp, Halberd the Charge, turning the tables. The crowd, which is almost entirely commons, starts going crazy, chanting for Shinji. He takes the mic to speak his mind, calling the topsiders oppressors and Moonshadow their puppet. This gets to Moonshadow, who gets angry and summons his strongest monster, Twilight Ninja Getsuga the Shogun, to mount a formidable defense. But Shinji is inspired. He recalls all the hardships he's faced and channels the crowd's energy to turn the duel around for good. The entire audience shouts with him in a spirit bomb-like moment, and he draws the perfect cards. Fueled by the power of revolution, he performs another Synchro summon and brings out his most broken monster, Battle Wasp, Ballista the Armageddon. The attack is devastating. The ninja's defense is shattered and Shinji claims victory, and he doesn't celebrate quietly. He uses his victory to fire up the crowd, calling everyone to rebellion. And Declan, the one who sent Moonshadow into this mess, he watches it all with the look of someone playing 4D chess and simply states that Moonshadow's defeat and his trip to the underground dump are all part of the plan. This guy is way too calculating. The Friendship Cup continues, and Chojuro, back in the dueling scene after 10 years, faces Zuzu Boyle. Yuya, Yugo, and Silvio are shocked, knowing the loser will be sent to a forced labor mine. Chojuro starts the duel strong, summoning 3 monsters at once with a powerful effect. Zuzu, however, shows her courage and uses radical maneuvers to grab action cards. Chojuro tries to corner her and inflict preset damage, but Zuzu lays down the law. The fun is just getting started. Then comes the comeback. Zuzu performs a fusion summon and brings out her ace diva, Bloom Diva the Melodious Choir. Chojuro summons a 5,000 attack monster, but Zuzu uses a card in her hand that cannot be negated, turns the duel around, and wins. Chojuro, though defeated, congratulates Zuzu and praises her. Yuya watches it all and cries with emotion, realizing the message Zuzu and Chojuro conveyed is the importance of dueling for fun. The final duel of the day is Selena versus Tony Zamboni. She's in trouble, but she fusion summons her Lunolite Panther Dancer, a monster that can attack twice. She sweeps Tony's field and wins, leaving Roger the city's top boss satisfied. After the elite's dinner, Jack Atlas, the king of duels, appears and tells his origin story, inspiring Riley. Meanwhile, Yuya rejects Jack's dueling philosophy and decides he will showcase the kind of dueling that brings smiles, his father's way. To wrap it up, Roger sets his revenge in motion. He sends a letter to an officer who was humiliated by Yugo, offering his job back if he defeats Yuya. The next duel will be personal. Yuya faces Officer 227 in the Friendship Cup and takes the opportunity to tell the crowd the truth. Losers are sent directly to forced labor underground. The crowd loves the idea, which makes the atmosphere incredibly sinister. Yuya wins with Odd Eye's saber dragon, but is left completely dejected because he now has to send the officer to the pit. The crowd that once hated him now cheers, completely ignoring his expose of the rotten system. Meanwhile, Yugo faces Silvio, and something bizarre happens. Yuya and Yugo start speaking in unison, a telepathic connection between counterparts. Yuya's deck even glows when Yugo summons Clear Wing Synchro Dragon.
Clear Wing Synchro Dragon!
Yugo wins, speaking with Yuya's voice, and Silvio realizes the two are identical before being dragged away by the guards. This confirms the connection between dimensions. The underground is basically a hellscape, a garbage plant where people are forced to work. The boss, Lucas Swank, reveals he works for Jean-Michel Roger from security. Swank has also discovered Sergei, the duelist crusher who's causing a stir up top. Meanwhile, Moonshadow behind the door delivers Declan's mission. Yuya must win the cup and defeat Jack Atlas to prove the Lancers are a force to be reckoned with. And now for an epic duel, Shay versus Dennis, two Lancers facing off. Shay has been suspicious of Dennis from the very beginning. In the middle of the fight, Dennis is forced to reveal his hand, and there it is, the polymerization card. His mask falls off completely. Dennis summons ancient gear fusion monsters, the same robots used by the Obelisk Force. He was a Duel Academy spy all along. Dennis puts all his cards on the table and summons Chaos Ancient Gear Giant with 4,500 attack. Then he drops the final bombshell. It was he who found Lulu, Shay's sister, and handed her over to Yuri. Shay is consumed by rage, summons Raid Raptor, Satellite Cannon Falcon, and literally bombards Dennis from space. Shay wins, but wants to turn Dennis into a card. Only Declan has disabled that function. Roger reveals his master plan. He has separated Selena from the group and wants to capture both her and Zuzu. Sora rescues Dennis and sends him back to the fusion dimension. Roger activates King's Gambit, hacks the minds of the guards, and takes control of the city. He rebels against Duel Academy itself and tries to form an alliance with Declan, who refuses. Leo sends the Obelisk Force as reinforcements. Zuzu versus Sergei in the quarterfinals, a race across the highways. Sergei is a complete psychopath. He enjoys taking damage. Zuzu tries to warn everyone about the interdimensional war, but Sergei couldn't care less. The guy summons a fusion monster that gets stronger the less life he has, reaching 4,800 attack. To make matters worse, he plays dirty and rams his duel runner into hers on purpose. Zuzu is thrown off, crashes into a building, and is knocked unconscious. A brutal defeat. Sergei returns laughing like the Joker and is immediately arrested. Yuya freaks out, wanting to help Zuzu, but he has to duel Shinji Weber. In the middle of the duel, Yuya sees Sora holding Zuzu's helmet. She's alive. With this knowledge, Yuya fully focuses and manages to turn the tables at the last second. Yuya uses Tuning Magician, which seemed like a useless card, to perform his first ever synchro summon, bringing out Enlightenment Paladin. Using the life point difference created by the useless card, he pumps up his monster's attack and defeats Shinji. To make things worse, Roger descends to the arena and heaps praise on Yuya in front of everyone, making him look like a sellout to the commons. Yuya finds Sora, who confirms Zuzu is safe, but wants to make a trade. Zuzu for Selena. Yuya refuses and ends up being captured in Sora's place to protect his friend. Now it's Crow versus Shay in the quarterfinals. Crow takes the lead and summons Assault Blackwing Sayo the Rain Hider. Shay is a mad strategist. He intentionally takes damage to summon monsters and performs an excess summon in the middle of the battle. He summons Rise Falcon, which steals the power of its opponent's monster. Crow performs a Phantom Synchro summon to revive Raikiri. In an emotional plot twist, a kid falls from the walkway, and Shay stops everything to save the child. They become friends, and the duel turns into a clash of giant monsters. Shay summons Ultimate Falcon with 3,500 attack, but Crow responds with Onimaru the Divine Thunder with 6,000 attack. Crow wins, but Roger orders Zuzu's arrest, and Yuya ends up in a cell. Yuya is freaking out in his cell, remembering what Sora said about them being his first real friends. Meanwhile, Sora himself is running through the streets like Sonic, looking for Zuzu. He evades security security, hiding like a ninja. Zuzu is with some orphans who helped her hide. They convince her to jump from a 2-story building. She survives the fall, but security shows up immediately. The guards summon their monsters and surround everyone. Zuzu realizes the others are in danger because of her and is about to turn herself in, but the orphans refuse to abandon a friend, following Crow's teachings. Just when all seems lost, a voice yells for Zuzu to grab a dual disc that falls from the sky. It's Sora, appearing on a rooftop, and he comes in hot, fusion summoning Frightful Chimera and blowing away one of security's monsters. Now with a dual disc, Zuzu joins the fight and summons Bloom Prima the Melodious Choir.
The blossoming beauty, Bloom Prima the Melodious Choir!
Working together in perfect teamwork, the two begin clearing the field, but one of the guards uses a card to boost his monster's attack and nearly defeats Zuzu. That's when Sora activates a trap that simply destroys all non-fusion special summoned monsters. Zuzu's and Sora's monsters perform a sort of waltz of destruction and wipe out all the enemies. After a high five, they flee. The head of security, Roger, is furious and orders a manhunt for Zuzu and the Duel Academy agent. Later, in hiding, Zuzu and Sora have a heart-to-heart. She finds out he's no longer loyal to the Academy, though he insists he is. Their argument is interrupted by Moonshadow, who accuses Sora of sealing his brother in a card. Before a fight can break out, Sora apologizes and promises to help protect Zuzu as a favor to Yuya. He goes after Yuya, while Moonshadow takes Zuzu and the orphans to the underground, the only safe place. The last match of the second round begins, Yugo versus Selena. While the crowd chants her name, Yugo is busy giving a dramatic speech to the sun, promising to win for Rin and Zuzu. When Selena arrives, Yugo looks at her and just freezes. He sees Rin, the girl he's been searching for. His brain shuts down, and he goes into total simp mode, yelling Rin, and trying to hug Selena in the middle of the arena. Obviously, he just gets a punch that sends him flying. This repeats several times, with Yugo trying to embrace her and Selena knocking him back to the ground until the countdown starts and the duel has to begin anyway. Because of the confusion, Yugo gets a late start and makes a weak opening move, summoning a feeble monster. Selena, on the other hand, isn't playing around. She immediately performs a fusion summon and brings out Lunalight Cat Dancer, which attacks twice and nearly wipes out Yugo's life points in a single turn. The beatdown makes Yugo remember some advice from Rin and finally focus on the duel. He synchro summons High Speedroid Puzzle, but Roger, the head of security, is watching and decides to give Selena a little help, using a cheat code to alter the race course. This allows Selena to grab an action card that saves her from Yugo's attack. The course changes again, preventing Yugo from grabbing an action card to defend himself. Cornered and about to lose, Yugo bets everything on a trap card that depends on a dice roll. If he rolls a 3, he can summon Clear Wing Synchro Dragon. If he misses, he loses all his monsters. Under pressure, he rolls the dice and makes it. He summons his dragon, and at that exact moment, in his cell, Yuya feels a strange connection. Their minds seem to merge, and with one voice, they declare that the fun is just getting started. The turbo duel between Selena and Yugo is on fire. Yugo was in a tight spot but pulled a rabbit out of his hat, or rather, a dragon, by summoning Clear Wing Synchro Dragon on a lucky dice roll. He tries to celebrate with Rin, but Selena quickly shuts him down, reminding him there's no one by that name there. Selena goes on the offensive with her Lunalight Panther Dancer, but Yugo, who seems to have become the king of dice, bets it all again. He rolls a 6 and not only saves his dragon, but also gives it a 1000 attack boost. However, just as the attack is about to connect, the boss man Roger, watching from his suite, pulls a Deus Ex Machina and changes the course, allowing Selena to grab an action card to save herself. Yugo immediately realizes the game is rigged. Despite the assist, Yugo isn't phased. He pulls off a master stroke like a 4D chess move, using his own dragon's effect to negate his other monster's effect, just so he can destroy Selena's Panther Dancer and increase his attack. Selena in turn shows she doesn't need help and purposefully ignores another action card that appears. Yugo, who's no fool, grabs the card for himself. Selena then unleashes her full power. She performs a Pendulum summon and then a fusion summon, bringing out the massive Lunalight Leo Dancer. The battle becomes intense, but Yugo survives using the very card Selena snubbed. To finish it, he evolves his monster and summons Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon.
I Synchro Summon! Take flight, Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon!
which basically eats its opponent's attack for breakfast and pulverizes Leo Dancer, winning the duel. After the fight, there's a moment of peace. Selena admits she had fun and shakes Yugo's hand, but then Yugo ruins it by calling her Rin again and gets a fist to the face. Classic. Meanwhile, Yugo wakes up confused somewhere, and to top it off, he spots his evil lookalike Yuri watching everything from the stadium roof. The second Yugo spots Yuri on the roof, he doesn't think twice. He floors it and starts a fast and furious style chase through the city. Yuri, completely nonchalant, jumps from a truck to a boat, leaving Yugo in the dust. Meanwhile, Selena, having lost the duel, is being taken to the city's basement, but the boss man Roger has other plans. His private goons show up, throw some gas in her face, and kidnap her mid-transport. Just when all seems lost, Riley, Declan's little brother, shows up to play the hero. The 3 security guards laugh at the kid and nearly wipe out his life points with direct attacks, but the kid isn't messing around. He remembers a conversation with his big bro, goes into Super Saiyan mode, and in a single turn, pulls off an absurd combo. He uses a fusion summon, then a synchro, and to top it off, an X's, wiping the floor with all 3 goons at once. A true spectacle. Right after, the Ninja Moon Shadow appears to rescue Selena and even taunts Roger over the comms. To make matters worse for the villain, Declan informs him he's already defeated his other team at the council building. Roger is furious, watching his plan crumble, so he goes for a desperate move. He sends Sergei, a guy who looks like a roided out cyborg, after Declan, and to distract everyone from the chaos, he announces the tournament semi-final for that very night, Yuya versus Crow, the perfect bread and circuses. The crowd gets excited for the night race, completely unaware of the drama unfolding behind the scenes, as Roger moves his final piece on the board, thinking he's the king of the entire dimension. In the Duel Palace, the topsiders are chanting Yuya's name, while the commons cheer for Crow. Outside, Sora hears the match announcement and is confused. How is Yuya dueling if he's supposed to be locked up by security? The answer lies in the boss's office with Jean Michel Roger. He's playing chess, like a movie villain, and admits he would have preferred to brainwash Yuya, but plans have changed. Now, he needs Yuya to win spectacularly to distract the entire city while he, Roger, stages a coup and captures Zuzu and Selena. To ensure everything goes according to plan, Roger has prepared a little gift in Yuya's helmet. On the track, before the start, Crow apologizes for misjudging Yuya and the Lancers. Yuya seizes the chance to tell him about Roger's plan. They agree to fake an epic duel so that Yuya can escape and save his friends. Crow is in without a second thought. The duel begins, and the two start putting on a ridiculous show. Yuya summons some dancing hippos, turning the track into a literal circus. Crow gets in on the act and summons his own monsters to join the party. The reporter Melissa is furious, like, is this a fight or a children's party? But Roger doesn't appreciate the fun and games and pushes a button. Yuya's helmet delivers an electric shock to his head, and the kid screams in pain. The escape plan is out the window. Roger cranks up the power and Yuya goes into a total berserker mode, his red eyes glowing. The vibe is so dark it affects his lookalikes, Yugo and Yuri, who start acting just like him. Zuzu's and Selena's bracelets begin to glow, like an alarm that something has gone very wrong. The dark Yuya summons Odd Eye's Pendulum Dragon and goes on an all-out assault. Crow is completely baffled, thinking he's been betrayed, and is forced to fight seriously. To make matters worse, Yuya summons Dark Rebellion X's Dragon, a monster that isn't even his. Sora, hanging from a helicopter, realizes instantly that this isn't the Yuya he knows. The clash continues with a possessed Yuya and Dark Rebellion X's Dragon on the field. He tries to use the dragon's effect to steal the power of Crow's monster, but Crow defends himself with a trap card, showing he's not messing around. Then, Yuya combines his 2 dragons and summons the ultimate monster of fury, Odd Eye's Rebellion Dragon. The energy is so immense, it causes a citywide blackout and shatters the dueling track mid-race. Crow, being the badass he is, uses his duel runner's wings to fly over the gap. Yuya, on the other hand, needs his dragon to carry him to avoid falling. Meanwhile, Yuya's helmet malfunctions and gets stuck on maximum output. The scientist warns that it could fry his brain, but Roger basically replies with, "A shame, but the show's fantastic." To make matters worse, a group arrives on hang gliders, the Obelisk Force, straight from Duel Academy. Sora, still hanging from a helicopter, realizes they've come for Selena. He doesn't think twice. He jumps into the middle of the duel, warns Crow that Yuya is being controlled, and bolts to save the others. Now knowing the truth, Crow understands his mission. He summons his strongest monster, Assault Blackwing, Chidori the Rain Sprinkling, with a kamikaze effect. If Chidori is destroyed, he loses the duel. It's all or nothing. He attacks Yuya's dragon with all his might, and the impact is so powerful it shatters the device on Yuya's head. Yuya returns to normal, but Yuya's monster had one last trick up its sleeve. When destroyed, it destroys the attacker and inflicts damage. And with that, Crow's life points hits 0. Yuya wins but wakes up with no memory of what happened. Crow, being taken away by the guards, tells him that Sora went to save Selena and urges Yuya to go help. With no time to waste, Yuya speeds off to find his friends. Meanwhile, the Obelisk Force decides to pay the Synchro dimension a visit, arriving in style by gliding down from the sky like characters from Fortnite. Yuya spots them and instantly gets it. They're the guys from Duel Academy, and they're here to kidnap Selena and Zuzu. With his protector mode cranked to the max, he floors it to find them. Meanwhile, Yugo is in a dark alley talking to a mysterious man who looks like he's straight out of a spy movie. The stranger wants to know about Zuzu and offers Rin's location in exchange. Yugo tells him to get lost, and the man vanishes into thin air, but not before issuing a threat. Elsewhere in the city, Moonshadow and Little Riley are protecting an exhausted Selena, but the Obelisk Force and Sector Security are closing in, and things are getting tight. Riley, showing the courage of a veteran, tells Moonshadow to get reinforcements and stays behind to hold them off alone. The Obelisk Force corners Moonshadow, but just when all seems lost, Sora pops up out of nowhere, like Goku using instant transmission. He summons his bizarre monsters, Fright for Chimera and Fright for Tiger, and completely dismantles the enemy's strategy. With a little help from Moonshadow, they wipe the floor with the invaders. Sora then warns them that Riley and Selena's location has been compromised. Yuya arrives on his duel runner, landing between Riley and the Obelisk Force like a true superhero, and he means business. With a single triple attack using his dragons, he sends all 3 Obelisk Force soldiers packing, but the peace is short-lived as a new boss enters the scene, Barrett. He's polite but makes it clear he's come to take Selena. Yuya, of course, doesn't take it lying down, and the duel begins. Cut to the underground prison, where chaos has erupted. Shay finds out that Duel Academy has invaded and decides he's not sitting this one out. He starts a riot, dishing out beatdowns to the guards like there's no tomorrow. Soon, Crow, Gong, and Silvio join the party. The icing on the cake is Moonshadow, who emerges from the shadows to hand everyone their duel discs and coordinate the escape. The plan is simple. Shay and Silvio will go help Riley, while Gong stays behind to protect Zuzu. There's just one small problem. In the middle of the confusion, Zuzu has vanished. Back to the duel. Barrett proves he's no pushover. He summons his Beastboard Panther Predator and immediately takes a chunk out of Yuya's life points. To make things worse, he activates a continuous trap that locks down any monster Yuya summons. It's like real-life Lied. The monsters are there, but they can't attack. Yuya tries to turn the tables by summoning Dark Rebellion X's dragon, but Barrett was ready and activates another trap, trapping the dragon as well. Yuya is completely cornered. His strongest monsters now just statues on the field, while little Riley starts having a panic attack beside him. The situation has gotten ugly. Odd Eye's Pendulum Dragon and Dark Rebellion X's dragon are chained up and furious, while Yuya is like a caged lion. The villain, Barrett, has essentially trapped Yuya with snake-like chains from a card and says, "Tell me where Zuzu is, or it's over for you." But Yuya is stubborn. He promises to protect both Zuzu and Selena, even if it means fighting to the end with his hands literally tied. Barrett isn't playing around and continues to attack, chipping away at Yuya's life points, and leaving his monsters with the power of a level 5 Pidgey. With every hit, the chains tighten. Meanwhile, the Obelisk Force is about to capture Riley and Selena, but who shows up to save the day? Sora. He drops down from the ceiling, defeats the goons, and declares he's on the good guy's side now. But the party doesn't last long. Yuri appears and drops a truth bomb. Sora is a traitor to Duel Academy, and so is Selena. And just when you think it can't get any worse, Yugo smashes through a window on his duel runner, ready to duel Yuri for kidnapping Rin. Yuri, with a smug attitude, decides Yugo is more interesting and accepts the duel. The battle begins, and Yugo immediately summons Clearwing Synchro Dragon. In response, Yuri brings out his own monster, Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, and that's when things get crazy. All 4 dragons start to glow and roar, and the 4 boys with the same face begin to act strangely, saying they will become one. The atmosphere gets incredibly tense. The showdown between the 4 dragon boys continues. They're on the verge of fusing, chanting, "We will become one," as a strange portal opens in the sky. The situation is spinning out of control, like the final scene of a Marvel movie. But at the last second, Zuzu appears. Her bracelet glows brighter than a truck's high beams, interrupting the process and throwing everyone back, canceling the apocalypse for now. Yuya can hardly believe she's there. Barrett sees Zuzu and thinks, well, two birds with one stone. He decides to continue the duel to capture them both, but out of nowhere, a behemoth named Sergei smashes through the ceiling and joins the duel. He doesn't even care about the 2,000 life point penalty and immediately traps Zuzu in an energy bubble. This guy is bizarre. He uses a card that allows him to perform a synchro and a fusion summon at the same time, bringing two giant monsters to the arena. Sergei wastes no time and defeats Barrett in a flash, but before passing out, Barrett uses his last ounce of energy to activate a teleporter, taking Selena with him. So long, Selena. Now it's Yuya's turn. He's possessed by rage, but Zuzu manages to calm him down. In a super emotional moment, he sacrifices the Smile World card to destroy Zuzu's prison, even though it costs him half his life points. Yuya even manages to summon a new dragon, Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon, but Sergei's monster has a trick up its sleeve and destroys Yuya's dragon in return. On his next turn, Sergei attacks directly and game over. Yuya has lost. To top it all off, Sergei simply ignores everyone, grabs Zuzu and flies out through the hole in the ceiling. Basically, a jetpack-assisted kidnapping. New Domino City has become a war zone. The commons took to the streets, destroying everything in their path and shouting, "Revolution!" It's pure anarchy, with people flipping cars and vowing to overthrow the elite. Meanwhile, the season's big bad, Jean-Michel Roger, is just watching the chaos unfold from his high-rise. Duel Academy is off the map, but he doesn't care, because he has Zuzu as his trump card. In the midst of the mayhem, Crow proves he's the true hero of the people. He stops everything to help a lost little boy. To him, a revolution that leaves children behind will only create more hatred, not a better world. Far away in a hideout, Yuya and the crew are all battered and bruised. Suddenly, Silvio Salvatore, Gong, and Chojiro appear, and Silvio, as usual, comes in kicking, ready to throw down with Sora, blaming him for everything. But Yuya defends the guy, saying he's on their side now. The hot gossip is that Roger, formerly of the Academy, is using Zuzu to stage a coup and create his own kingdom. With Zuzu in danger, Sora and Moonshadow set off on a rescue mission. Yuya is too injured to go, and Silvio stays behind with the excuse that he needs to protect Riley, a mission befitting the next leader. And in the middle of the apocalypse, what does Roger do? He announces that the Friendship Cup will continue. Yugo has been disqualified, and his replacement is none other than the legend, the king himself, Jack Atlas. Roger's plan is simple. Let Sergei crush the city's greatest hero to plunge everyone into despair. The duel begins, and Jack immediately brings out the big guns. His dragon, Scarlet Red Dragon Archfiend. But Sergei isn't playing around. The guy pulls off some voodoo and summons a synchro and a fusion monster at the same time. He tries to destroy Jack's dragon, but the king uses an action card and turns the tables. But then Sergei completely loses it, fusing with his duel runner and turning into a bizarre dueling machine, part cyborg, part evil transformer. Now in this new form, he starts to corner Jack, using the track itself to deal damage bit by bit. Things are looking grim for Jack. Sergei, in his bizarre transformer form, is using a field spell to inflict damage on Jack every time he grabs an action card. He's so in control that he's getting bored, tearing up the asphalt with his bike's claws just to taunt him. Jack tries everything to get ahead, but the dueling machine is just too fast. While Roger celebrates his enemy's misfortune, dreaming of becoming the new dictator, Sergei prepares the final blow. He summons two monsters and puts Jack in a tough spot. Either Jack destroys his own dragon, Scarlet Red Dragon Archfiend, or he loses the duel. It's like choosing between a rock and a hard place. Everyone thinks Jack will sacrifice his monster, but the king is the king for a reason. He delivers an epic speech about how his dragon is his soul and that he would never abandon it, even if it cost him his life. This act seems to short-circuit Sergei's brain. Jack barely survives the attacks, using his traps and ending up with razor-thin life points. In a split-second opening, the king shows why he's in charge and grabs an action card before Sergei, breaking the infinite damage loop. From that point on, the duel transforms. Sergei seems to break free from Roger's control and ignores the next cards. He just wants a real fight, soul to soul. The trap begins to collapse, and Sergei nearly falls to his death. But who saves him? Jack himself, with his dragon. The king leaves no one behind, not even his enemy. After this rescue, Sergei Sergei is completely changed, calling the duel beautiful. On his turn, Jack draws the game-changing card, Soul Fist. With it, he reduces Sergei's monster's attack to 0, then uses his dragon's effect to destroy the enemy. And to finish it off, Scarlight Red Dragon Archfiend absorbs the destroyed monster's power, reaching 3000 attack. With one direct attack, Jack wins. Sergei falls from the track, but this time he refuses to be saved, bidding farewell with a final strange, beautiful. The king is victorious, the city celebrates, and Roger? He's having a meltdown in his office. With his trump card out of the game, Roger hits the chaos button and orders security to suppress the commons by any means necessary. The city descends into pandemonium, with security's monsters cornering the populace. Shinji and his crew don't back down and charge forward, ready for a fight. In the midst of the turmoil, Riley, Declan's little brother, has a tense war flashback upon seeing the violence. When he freaks out and runs into the fray, Shay appears out of nowhere, like a superhero, and rescues him. Then, Roger appears on every screen, declaring martial law and crowning himself the new ruler of the city. Zuzu, though handcuffed, shoves Roger, sending him to the floor and stealing the show. She uses the screens to tell everyone the truth. Roger wants Chaos to seize power, and the real enemy is Duel Academy. She ends with a direct plea to Yuya, asking him to use his duels to bring back smiles. This speech, along with a message from Jack saying Yuya's dueling only seeks power, makes it all click. Yuya understands that Jack's victory and Zuzu's words share the same vibe. Dueling should bring joy. He decides he will challenge Jack. With the help of the other Lancers, who fly in on their monsters like the cavalry, Yuya finally reaches the duel palace and, microphone in hand, challenges Jack Atlas in front of the entire city. Roger is not happy about Yuya's challenge and decides that if he can't control the game, he'll just flip the board. He orders security to invade the duel palace and arrest everyone, but he didn't count on the Lancers, who clear out the guards like they're taking candy from a baby. With security out of commission, the commons see the perfect opportunity to settle the score with the rich folks in attendance. The tension rises, and it looks like a massacre is about to break out. But then, a voice echoes through the stadium. Silence! It's Jack, who quiets the entire crowd with a single word. He warns that no one will ruin the duel that will decide the city's future. The duel begins, and Jack, to provoke him, makes the exact same opening move as in their first fight. It's like a "So, did you learn anything, rookie?" Yuya responds with his Pendulum summon and activates his trump card, Smile World, which gives him attack boost to all monsters on the field. Yes, even Jack's. Yuya thinks he's on top of the world, but Jack isn't playing games and throws cold water on him. He basically says Yuya is just a cheap copy of his father and has no style of his own. To prove his point, he negates Yuya's attack and summons his ace monster, Scarlight Red Dragon Archfiend. To make things worse, Roger sends in more goons to crash the party, interrupting the duel, but Jack, having lost all patience with such amateur antics, activates his dragon's effect and simply wipes everyone off the field, including Yuya's monsters and Roger's goons. He makes it crystal clear that he won't tolerate imitations or cheap interruptions. The damage would have been 8,500, basically deleting Yuya from the game, but he manages to save himself at the last second with an action card. Still, Jack shows no mercy and attacks directly, leaving Yuya with a measly 1,000 life points. While the main event is going down, Sora and Moonshadow are on an infiltration mission at the security headquarters. Like a pair of ninjas from Metal Gear Solid, they discover the guards have been brainwashed and are emotionless. To save Zuzu, they need to break that control. Back at the duel, Jack taunts Yuya, saying he only knows how to imitate his father and lacks his own style. This gets to Yuya, who begins to doubt if his entertainment dueling is truly his own. To prove Jack wrong, he uses the card he got from Sam, summoning Enlightenment Paladin. He even manages to attack, but Jack defends with a trap. On Jack's turn, Yuya almost bites the dust again but protects his monster using pendulum effects, though it comes at a steep price. His life points drop to a mere 100. Then, Yuya has an epiphany. He realizes that pendulum summoning isn't something he borrowed, it's his creation. And with this newfound confidence, he does the unthinkable. He uses a Synchro monster and a pendulum monster to create a completely new type of monster, Nirvana High Paladin, a Synchro pendulum hybrid. Jack, instead of being intimidated, thinks it's awesome. He pulls pulls a Fast and Furious worthy maneuver, jumping over a gap in the track, and responds with a double tuning, using 2 tuner monsters at once. From this, Tyrant Red Dragon Archfiend is born, arriving on the scene and immediately wiping the entire field. But Yuya is unfazed and at the last second summons 5 monsters at once. Things just got serious. The scene is tense. Yuya has only 100 life points against a 10,000 attack dragon. Jack achieved this immense power by activating a trap that not only doubled his monster's attack, but also added the power of another dragon from his graveyard. Anyone else would have given up, but not Yuya. He devises a brilliant strategy. Using his Nirvana High Paladin's effect, he sends his weaker monsters to attack one by one. They can't be destroyed, and Yuya takes no damage, but each attack chips away at Jack's monster's attack. It's like death by 1,000 cuts. The entire city stops to watch. The crowd, which was just at each other's throats, is now cheering for Yuya together. Crow and Shinji show up to offer moral support, and even Silvio gets hyped and dubs the combo Pendulum Chain. Jack realizes that Yuya's dueling is uniting everyone, and instead of getting angry, he's proud and tells Yuya to bring it on. After weakening Jack's dragon, it's time for the main event. Yuya attacks with his Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon and, for the grand finale, activates its effect to double the battle damage. It's the finishing blow. Jack's life points hit 0, and Yuya Sakaki is the new king of duels. The whole city celebrates. Jack passes the crown to Yuya, and even the city council admits they were wrong and dissolves itself, but the celebration is cut short. Sora appears on a screen, all beaten up, and delivers a warning. Roger has kidnapped Zuzu and is fleeing to Duel Academy. The scene cuts to Roger dragging Zuzu down a hallway, but he runs right into Declan. The two trade barbs, and Roger dashes into a room with Zuzu, with Declan in hot pursuit. The door slams shut, and a new duel begins. Roger immediately summons his ancient gear howitzer, setting up a seemingly impenetrable defense that also deals damage every turn. Silvio and Gong race through the streets toward the smoking security headquarters. Suddenly, Shay flies by on his Raid Raptor, and Silvio is furious he didn't get a ride. Soon after, Yuya arrives by helicopter, while Jack and Crow smash through the building's windows on their duel runners in full action movie style. Inside, Declan is in a tense duel against Roger. The villain has a monster immune to card effects, equipped with a spell that prevents it from being destroyed by battle. Basically, a nearly unbeatable combo. But Declan, who's like the Swiss Army knife of dueling, proves he has mastered all summoning methods. He performs a fusion summon, then a synchro, and even a pendulum summon all in the same turn, bringing absurdly powerful monsters to the arena.
Level 8 Triple D Cursed King Siegfried!
With his army of Triple D monsters, Declan negates the effect of Roger's shield, destroys his monster, and wipes out his life points. Game over? Not a chance. Roger simply reappears, like a video game boss with infinite lives, but with a 2,000 life point penalty. The guy is immortal in a duel. That's when the rest of the crew arrives, and Sora uses his hacking skills to open the locked door. Seeing the situation, Declan comes up with a brilliant plan. He creates an infinite loop that deals exactly 2,000 damage to Roger every turn. If Roger always revives with 2,000 life points, he will be perpetually defeated. This forces the real Roger, who is dueling from hiding with a visor, to reveal himself. And worse, he's holding Zuzu hostage. Roger then drops a bombshell. Declan's father is the professor, the leader of Duel Academy. He accuses Declan of using the Lancers as pawns in a family war, but Yuya doesn't fall for it and defends Declan. Roger tries to escape with Zuzu, but Jack and Crow attack the elevator, causing them both to fall. Yuya, in a heroic rescue, swings across the room and saves Zuzu. Their reunion is emotional but brief. Roger, in a final act of desperation, activates a machine to hurl the entire city into the void between dimensions. The plan backfires, and he himself is sucked into a wormhole. But the machine is still active, and a new portal opens, pulling in Zuzu, followed by Yuya, Gong, Shay, and Silvio. They wake up in the ruins of a city, and Shay confirms the worst. They are in Heartland, his home dimension. We open with a depressing flashback. Heartland, in the Exis dimension, was like the Disney World of dueling, a happy place where everyone had fun. That is until Duel Academy arrived with its giant robots, turning the city into a war zone and its people into cards. It's the apocalypse, but with dual monsters. Back in the present, Yuya, Gong, and Silvio are wandering through this scene of destruction. Silvio is so dehydrated he starts hallucinating a lake in the middle of the desert. They find a woman who, upon seeing their dual discs, flees in terror, leaving food behind. This shows just how traumatized everyone is. They decide to return her things and find her hiding with her 2 children. To prove they aren't a threat, they drop their own dual discs on the ground, and Yuya helps one of the kids kids open a can. Meanwhile, Shay visits the ruins of his old duel school, remembering when he and Yuto captured an enemy soldier. Yuto was the pacifist, believing in resolving things without violence, while Shay only wanted revenge. Back with the family, the mother explains that the resistance was wiped out and that dueling has brought nothing but suffering. Their conversation is interrupted by Duel Academy soldiers. Yuya, Gong, and Silvio spring into action. Yuya gets on an imaginary stage and delivers an epic speech about how duels are meant to bring smiles, not for war, recalling everything he learned in the Synchro dimension. He activates the Smile World card and, along with his friends, performs a triple pendulum summon, blasting the soldiers away with a combined attack. The family watches and a spark of hope is rekindled. Silvio, being Silvio, tries to use the enemy's equipment to turn the soldiers into cards, but can't get the technology to work. Yuya stops him, and the soldiers flee, but they don't get far. Out of nowhere, an explosion hits them, and they are turned into cards by a mysterious duelist who appears with his Galaxy Eyes Cipher Dragon. The new character faces the Lancers, already seeing them as his next prey. They've just gotten out of one mess and walked right into another. The guy, whose name is Kite, is furious. He declares the Academy his enemy and shows no mercy in turning them into cards. Silvio, who never backs down from a fight, accepts the challenge on the spot. Gong tries to de-escalate by joining the duel to force a draw, but it's no use. Silvio is eager to show who's boss and starts using action cards, which intrigues Kite, who is unfamiliar with this dueling style. Gong summons a defensive monster to prevent anyone from getting hurt, but Silvio, impatient, uses an action card to deal direct damage to Kite, ruining his friend's strategy. Kite then makes it clear he doesn't consider them allies, and since they use a dueling style not from Heartland, they are essentially invaders. Things get serious. Silvio uses a trap to prevent Kite from summoning his strongest X's monster, thinking he's sealed the game. It's then that Yuto's spirit appears to Yuya and reveals that this guy, Kite, was a famous duelist and their rival before the invasion, but Silvio's strategy backfires. Kite, being a genius, uses an effect to increase his monster's levels and summons his 3000 attack rank 8 dragon, Galaxy Eyes Cipher Dragon.
Galaxy Eyes Cipher Dragon!
With his ace on the field, Kite wastes no time. He activates the dragon's effect to steal Gong's monster and uses it to attack and defeat Silvio. Then, with a direct attack, he finishes off Gong's life points. It's over for both of them. Now, only Yuya is left, facing down Kite, determined to settle this through a duel. The fight continues. Now one-on-one, Yuya versus Kite. Kite is in full-on revenge mode, vowing to turn 1,000 Academy soldiers into cards for every friend he's lost. He's not interested in talking, only destruction. The duel begins, and Kite immediately summons his ace monster, Galaxy Eyes Cipher Dragon. Yuya responds with his Pendulum summon, bringing out Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon and a support monster to boost its attack. He goes on the offensive, pouring all his desire for dialogue into the attack, but Kite is an incredible strategist. He had watched the others fight earlier and predicted exactly what Yuya would do, activating a trap that negates the attack. The guy basically read Yuya's mind. To make matters worse, Kite uses his dragon's effect to steal Yuya's Odd Eyes and uses it to attack its own master. Yuya barely saves himself with an action card but takes heavy damage. Unfazed, Yuya makes his strongest play. He summons an X's version of his dragon, Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon, a 3000 attack monster that can double its power when battling other dragons. It seemed like the perfect comeback, but Kite appears to have a card for every situation. He activates a trap that suddenly summons a second Galaxy Eyes Cipher Dragon and then uses another effect to make their attacks equal. The two 6000 attack dragons clash and destroy each other in an epic draw that leaves Yuya without his strongest monster. That's when Yuto's spirit lends a hand. Together, they use what's left on the field to perform a new X's summon, and the monster that appears is Yuto's ace, Dark Rebellion, X's dragon. Seeing that dragon leaves Kite in total shock, he finally sees Yuto within Yuya. Shay and other members of the resistance arrive, confirming that Yuya is an ally. Overwhelmed by it all, Kite simply vanishes. He disappears into thin air, leaving everyone hanging. Night falls on Heartland, and our group arrives at the Resistance hideout. Inside, we meet Alan, a friendly redhead, and Saya, a shy girl who's handing out soup. Silvio is already acting like he's king of the world and complains about the informal treatment, but Gong quickly puts him in his place. Yuya reunites with the family he saved earlier, and Shay explains that they were the ones who showed them the way, but Yuya is feeling down, sensing he failed to reach Kite's heart. That's when Alan notices the uncanny resemblance between Yuya and Yuto. He even thinks Yuya Yuya is Yuto since he used Dark Rebellion. Shay clears up the confusion. He and Yuto went to the standard dimension, but Yuto vanished and gave his dragon to Yuya, asking him to bring smiles with his duels. Alan and Saya are shocked, but accept the story. Later, the mood darkens as Alan recounts how Duel Academy carried out a massacre, turning everyone into cards. He reveals that Kite's family was among the victims, which explains the guy's intense hatred. Yuya feels like a failure, but Saya recognizes his last name and asks about Yusho Sakaki. Yuya is stunned. They know his father. Saya reveals that Yusho was their teacher, but Alan cuts in, calling Yusho a coward who abandoned them and ran away. Meanwhile, Zuzu wakes up at a completely unfamiliar port. She sees children saying goodbye as they head off to Duel Academy, as if it were the best school in the world. Zuzu realizes she's landed right in the lion's den, the fusion dimension. When she tries to warn a boy, the entire town turns against her, thinking she's a fugitive. She's cornered by juvenile officers, but out of nowhere, a mysterious cloaked woman appears to save the day. Her name is Alexis, and she challenges all three officers to a duel at once. The guys summon three gigantic monsters, but Alexis, with an enviable calm, performs a ritual summon and brings out Cyber Angel Vrash, which simply sweeps the enemy field and wins the duel in a single turn. After the beatdown, Alexis takes Zuzu to a hideout called the Yusho Duel School, and there, sitting in a chair, is none other than Yusho Sakaki. Zuzu can't believe her eyes and breaks down in tears, embracing Yusho after so long. He tells her that before arriving here, he was in the Exis dimension, sent there by a certain young man. Meanwhile, Yuya is stewing over Alan's words, who called his father a coward. He talks with Yuto's spirit, who reveals he never personally met Yusho. The dueling with a smile philosophy that Yuto often mentioned came from Lulu, who likely learned it from Saya, one of Yusho's students. Suddenly, Yuya is confronted by a hooded figure. Upon hearing the name Sakaki, the stranger is consumed by hatred and challenges Yuya to a duel, planning to use him as bait to lure out Yusho. The guy is from Duel Academy and he means business, summoning his Destiny Hero monsters and dealing some serious damage. Yuya tries a peaceful approach with the card Smile World, but this only enrages his opponent further. The mysterious duelist fusion summons Destiny Hero Dystopia and corners Yuya. Seeing this, Yuto loses patience with Yuya's peace and love strategy and simply takes over his body. Yuya's eyes glow, and in a single voice, they perform a pendulum summon and bring out Dark Rebellion X's dragon.
Dark Rebellion exceeds Dragon!
Yuto goes on an all-out offensive, using the dragon's effect to steal the enemy monster's attack and leave his opponent with just 100 life points. But the guy is resilient and counters, weakening Yuto's dragon. Enraged, Yuto evolves his monster, performing a rank-up Exis summon to bring forth Dark Requiem Exis Dragon. The duel reaches its climax. Dark Requiem gains an insane amount of attack power, but at the last second, the mysterious duelist uses a card from his hand that inflicts 1,000 damage to both players. The result: a draw. Both of their life points hit 0. Duel Academy soldiers appear and address the figure as commander. He removes his hood, revealing he's a teenager. Back at the hideout, Yusho reveals to Zuzu the name of the young man who sent him there, Aster Phoenix, the commander-in-chief of Duel Academy. Yuya emerges from the rubble and realizes the mysterious duelist has vanished. His new goal is to find Commander Phoenix to locate his father. But elsewhere, things are heating up. Alan and Saya find Kite, who has just turned 3 Duel Academy soldiers into cards. Mercilessly, Kite is in full-on edgelord mode, announcing he has cut ties with everyone. Alan tries to bring his friend back, but Kite isn't in the mood to talk. That's when Shay appears and places a hand on his shoulder, as if to say, "We need to talk." Kite gets angry and whips out his duel disc, threatening to turn Shay into a card too. Unfazed, Shay accepts the challenge. Shay opens with his Raid Raptor Rise Falcon, but Kite scoffs, calling it an amateur move. The fight is a spectacle of twists and turns. Shay uses action cards, and Kite calls him a coward for it. Shay retorts that this is the strength of his new friends, the Lancers. In the middle of the clash, Yuya arrives and reveals that Yuto is inside him, explaining how he knows about their past. This shocks everyone. At the climax, Shay summons his strongest monster, Raid Raptor, Ultimate Falcon, and nearly wins. But Kite, like a true rival, activates a crazy chain of traps, turns the tables, and defeats Shay. He prepares to turn his former friend into a card, but Saya falls to her knees, crying and begging him to stop. She reveals she feels feels guilty about Lulu's kidnapping. Seeing her desperation, Kite's hand trembles and he simply turns his back and walks away. While the new Yusho duel school is thriving, Yuya's father, Yusho, decides to come clean to Zuzu. It turns out he's no deserter. 3 years ago, Declan Akaba himself asked for his help to stop his father Leo's plans. Yusho agreed to lead the Lancers, but decided to go to Duel Academy alone to try and talk to Leo. However, the teleportation went wrong, and he ended up in the X's dimension, where he taught everyone to duel with a smile. Then, it's Alexis's turn to share her origin story. She was a top student at the academy, but was horrified when she discovered they weren't just dueling soldiers, but also turning civilians, women, children, the elderly, into cards. She tried to escape with a friend, but the girl was turned into a card right in front of her. Who saved her? None other than Yusho. Now the two of them run the school together to fight against the academy. The calm is shattered when 5 Yusho students run into Yuri. They decide to fight together in a 5-on-1 duel, preaching the philosophy of happy dueling. Yuri finds this absolutely hilarious. He lets the 5 of them summon their strongest monsters, including Ojama King and V-6 Dragon Catapult Cannon. Then, he summons his starving Venom Fusion Dragon, absorbs everyone's power, and in a single turn, wipes out all 5 of them, without breaking a sweat. Zuzu and Alexis arrive to find Yuri, who recognizes Zuzu. Before things can escalate, Yugo appears on his D-wheel to run the villain over, but Zuzu's bracelet teleports Yuri away. Yugo and Zuzu have a very awkward reunion, complete with a whack from her fan. Meanwhile, at the academy, 2 new female villains are summoned to hunt down the Lancers. Things are about to get serious. We see Saya serving soup to refugees, but her mind is elsewhere. She can't stop thinking about Kite and Shay's duel, and how Shay spoke about the importance of comrades. The guilt of not helping Lulu hits her hard, and she decides she's done being a damsel in distress. She runs out of the sanctuary, determined to bring Kite back. Meanwhile, the group is looking for her. Alan, who is fixing his turbo skates, doesn't think twice and jets off after her. Yuya tries to go with him, but Alan shuts him down, calling him a stranger and saying he doesn't trust him. Still upset about Yuya's father supposedly abandoning everyone, Shay then organizes the search, deciding to pair up with Yuya. Running alone through Heartland, Saya comes face to face with 2 maniacs from Duel Academy, Gloria and Grace. They look like they've stepped out of a villain convention and are looking for a little gift for Aster. Alan arrives just in time to protect Saya, and the 2 villains, finding it all very amusing, propose a 2-on-2 tag duel. Alan tries to play the hero alone, but Saya, filled with newfound courage, accepts the challenge. The duel begins with Alan dealing a little damage just to warm up, but the Tyler sisters summon the mighty Amazoness Queen. Saya tries to fight back with her fairy cheer girl, but her strategy backfires. The queen has an effect that prevents its destruction, and the sisters mock her mercilessly, saying her brain must be the size of a pea. Things get worse when they reveal they are the infamous Tyler sisters, the same ones who nearly wiped out an entire battalion of the resistance. Then the brutal combo begins. They summon Amazoness Pet Ligger and start relentlessly attacking Fairy Cheer Girl, lowering her attack and chipping away at the duo's life points. When all seems lost, Alan, with a tip from Saya, manages to draw Limiter Removal. A flurry of traps and spells ensues, looking like a scene from an action movie, and for a second, it seems they might turn the tide. But the Tyler sisters are on another level. They draw another fusion monster, Amazoness Empress, and quickly end the party with piercing damage. Game over. Just when all seems lost and the villains have their cards ready to seal the pair, Gong and Silvio arrive to save the day. Round 2 is about to begin. Yuya and Shay arrive on the scene to find a war zone. Gong, Silvio, Alan, and Saya, all defeated on the ground. Yuto, inside Yuya, is consumed with rage. He wants revenge against the Tyler sisters, who almost wiped out the Spade branch of the resistance. Shay is on the same page, ready to crush them, but Yuya, afraid of being possessed by that dark power again, urges calm and says he'll fight his way, the entertainment way. The new tag duel begins, and the sisters immediately deploy an anti-Yuya strategy. They use cards that limit summons, and worst of all, a trap that makes them gain life points every time their opponents special summon. Basically, Pendulum summoning, Yuya's greatest weapon, has become a massive disadvantage. Shay doesn't care about strategy. Blinded by fury, he summons a swarm of monsters, inflating the sisters' life points to nearly 6,000. He manages a powerful attack with Rise Falcon.
But you'll still take damage!
dealing massive damage, but the villains have more cards up their sleeves, one to heal all the damage they took and another to negate future attacks. His effort was for nothing, and they even counterattack, leaving Yuya and Shay with a meager 300 life points. With their backs against the wall, Yuya takes control. He asks Yuto and Shay to trust him and announces he's going to put on a show, his father's duel-taining. And what a show it is. Yuya starts intentionally summoning monsters, causing the sisters' life points to soar past 10,000. Everyone thinks he's lost his mind. Then comes the grand finale. Yuya activates Smile World and Miracle Rocket Show. The battlefield turns into a spectacle of lights and stars. He uses the effects of Shay's Rise Falcon and his own Dark Rebellion X's Dragon to build an absurd amount of attack power. The final attack deals no battle damage because Yuya's own card prevents it. But here's the twist. Miracle Rocket Show inflicts effect damage equal to the battle damage that was negated. The result? Over 10,000 points of direct damage to their faces. A spectacular victory. As the group celebrates, back at the Academy base, Aster sees Yuya using his father's card and flips out, sending the entire army after the boy. And to top it off, the Tyler sisters, still in shock from the show, are intercepted by the Obelisk Force, who have arrived to take over. After the Tyler twins hit the deck, Shay and Yuya barely have time to breathe before a new squad appears. The Obelisk Force. Shay, who doesn't take kindly to insults, charges one of the soldiers and summons his Raid Raptor, Rise Falcon, but the monster is destroyed in the blink of an eye by an enemy card effect. Think he'd give up? Think again. Shay draws a rank-up magic spell card and evolves his monster like an armored Pokemon, bringing out Raid Raptor, Blaze Falcon. With the new beast on the field, he attacks his opponent's life points directly and blows up the guy's monster for good measure. But the Obelisk Force has a dirty trick up their sleeve. They fuse monsters from their graveyard to summon a colossal titan, Chaos Ancient Gear Giant. The situation gets tense when the giant targets Yuya's Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon, but just when all seems lost, Kite appears to save the day. Out of nowhere, he summons his own powerhouse dragon, Galaxy Eyes Cypher Dragon. And not only that, he uses its effect to steal control of the enemy's giant. He's like a monster hacker. To complete the combo, Kite doubles the stolen giant's attack power and uses the enemy's own weapon to wipe all 3 Obelisk Force soldiers off the map at once. Poetic. But the celebration is short-lived, because from the smoke emerges Aster Phoenix, who glares at Yuya and challenges him to a decisive duel. One fight barely ends before another begins. Gloria, one of the twins, complains that the boss ordered them to handle the Lancers, but Aster Phoenix tells her to shut it. A bureaucrat named Noro tries to suck up to Aster, offering to handle the situation, but gets shot down so coldly he freezes on the spot. It's clear who's in charge. Meanwhile, Shay is unconscious, and Yuya and the others are desperate. Suddenly, a chain latches onto Yuya's wrist and drags him into a forced duel against Aster, Mortal Kombat's Scorpion style. A steel cage erupts around them, and Aster introduces himself as the Commander-in-Chief. This is for real, with no interference. To make matters worse, Noro's cronies surround the rest of the Lancers, but Kite steps up. "Let me take out the trash." The duel begins. Aster plays defensively with just one monster. Yuya goes all out, performing a pendulum summon and flooding the field with Dog Daggerman and his ace dragon Odd Eyes. He attacks, but Aster is full of tricks. He uses an effect from his hand to negate the direct attack damage and inflict 1,000 damage to both of them. On his turn, Aster Fusion summons his ace monster, Destiny Hero, Dystopia. He activates a brutal combo that burns Yuya's life points, destroys Odd Eyes and Dog Daggerman, leaving the protagonist's life hanging by a thread. Meanwhile, Kite makes good on his promise and single-handedly annihilates the entire squad. With his friend Syth, Yuya decides to fight fire with fire. If Aster uses fusion, so will he. He makes a brilliant play, shattering his own pendulum scale to perform a fusion summon, bringing out Brave Eyes Pendulum Dragon. The beast reduces Dystopia's attack to 0, paving the way for victory, but Aster still has one last trap up his sleeve, which destroys Odd Eyes and turns the tables once again. That's when Yuya notices Aster carrying a torn piece of the Smile World card. Under pressure, Aster tells the story. He dueled Yuya's father, Yusho Sakaki, and lost. He couldn't accept that dueling could be fun, so he freaked out, tore the card, and Yusho mysteriously vanished. Ever since, Aster has been hunting Yusho for revenge, and now he's going to take it all out on his son. Fueled by this rage, Aster declares his final attack with Dystopia, aiming for Yuya's last remaining life points. As Aster's Dystopia attacks, Yuya runs and dodges like Spider-Man on an obstacle course. Meanwhile, in the audience, Noro, whose Japanese name is basically a pun for moron, is secretly cheering for Yuya. While the sisters Grace and Gloria analyze the fight, Aster is overconfident with his Dystopia and Urban Demise trap combo, which basically prevents anyone from attacking properly. Yuto, the ghost on Yuya's shoulder, suggests attacking with multiple monsters at once, but Yuya insists on doing things his way. He wants to convince Aster that dueling is fun, just like his father, Yusho, tried to do. Yuya then summons Performapal Laughmaker, a monster that, as its name suggests, is there to make people laugh. Aster thinks this idea of fun dueling is a joke, but Yuya attacks anyway. Aster's combo activates, boosting Dystopia's attack, but this triggers Laughmaker's effect, which gains 1000 attack and turns the tables. A back and forth of traps and effects ensues, but in the end, Yuya manages to deal damage, leaving Aster with 3100 life points. Aster is furious and doesn't understand why Yuya is smiling. He remembers his duel against Yuya's father, who, even while injured, summoned Smile World and said that forgiveness was the only way to end the conflict. Aster refuses to accept this philosophy and, on his turn, destroys Laughmaker, leaving Yuya with a mere 100 life points. But just when all seems lost, Yuya draws his own Smile World and yells, "Ladies and gentlemen," preparing his comeback. He increases his pendulum scale and summons back Laughmaker and Odd Eyes. And then comes the craziest move. He uses a card to give his monsters to Aster. With the field full, he activates Smile World, which increases the attack of every monster, but Laughmaker's effect triggers again, and its attack skyrockets to a whopping 6900. Aster uses his combo to destroy Laughmaker once more, but this destruction allows Yuya to summon Brave Eyes Pendulum Dragon, which negates the attack of all opposing monsters and gains their power. In the final exchange, Yuya manages to copy an action card from Aster to double his attack to 6600, winning the duel with an explosion of smiling fireworks. Aster loses, but for the first time, he cracks a small smile. The peace is short-lived, as an army from Duel Academy suddenly appears to surround them. The duel is barely over when Noro orders his soldiers to attack Yuya. But when things get tough, who shows up to save the day? Kite, swooping in with full-on superhero flair. Witnessing this, Aster decides to give a Braveheart-style speech, saying the professor's war is a sham and that everyone can be redeemed. And it actually works. Most of the soldiers switch sides and join the Lancers. The conversation now shifts to rescuing everyone who has turned into a card. Yuto drops a bombshell. They're all at Duel Academy. Kite, being the tech genius he is, discovers a teleporter that sends the cards directly there, like some kind of evil Amazon Prime. With a plan in place, the team splits up. Kite, Gong, Alan, and Yuya will go on the rescue mission, while Aster promises to keep an eye on Shay. Before leaving, Alan even gives his skates to Yuya in a passing the torch moment. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Yuya's father, Yusho, is dueling Dennis. But the duel is just a front, a distraction for Yusho and Yugo to make a break for it and head to Duel Academy as well. Dennis starts strong with his performances, but Yusho is a master of magic tricks and manages to escape. Yuya, focused on saving his family, rushes to the main chamber, but Zuzu stands in front of some soldiers to provide cover for him and Yugo. She sacrifices herself so they can escape, in a classic "go on, I'll hold them off" moment. Meanwhile, Iggy Arlo appears, a guy who was humiliated by Yuya in the past and now, manipulated by Dennis, wants revenge. Gong and Silvio, like good friends, charge at Dennis to protect Zuzu, but the coward flees. Yuya, seeing the pain in Iggy's eyes, decides he can't ignore it and accepts the duel. Iggy starts with a super self-destructive strategy, using the monster Shuro the Combat Star.
Sora, the combat star!
Which reduces the attack of every monster on the field to 0. It's pure emo energy. Yuya, who has been in that place of rage before, refuses to resort to violence. He uses his pendulum spells to adapt Dark Rebellion X's Dragon, but Iggy counters with the Shooting Star Bow Seal. Things get serious when Iggy activates a trap that would have dealt massive damage to both of them, but Yuya responds with Acrobatic Tower, turning the duel into a sort of Jenga with stacked monsters. During this clash, Iggy confesses he was always jealous of Yuya's joy. In the end, the tower collapses, but Yuya manages to prove his point. Dueling is meant to be fun, not a tool for revenge. Iggy is moved, and Yuya smiles, reaffirming his duel-taining philosophy. Zuzu runs desperately to Yuya and warns him that his father, Yusho, is heading to the port. The whole group takes off at a sprint, but they arrive too late. The boat is already sailing off into the horizon. Classic movie timing. Meanwhile, aboard the ship, Yusho and Alexis are cornered by Dennis. The former student is furious and wants to settle the score with his old teacher, but out of nowhere, Kite appears, declaring he will duel in Yusho's place to rescue Lulu. He also reveals that Aster's army let their guard down after a duel with Yuya. The kid is influencing everyone. Dennis, annoyed that Aster has gone soft, accepts the duel against Kite, planning a dueltainment show with Kite cast as the villain. Dennis starts the show with his classic Pendulum X's summon, bringing out Performapal Trapeze Magician. Kite doesn't hold back and summons his ace monster, the incredibly powerful Galaxy Eye Cypher Dragon. The battle is a spectacle. Kite even manages to steal Dennis's monster, but the showman defends with a trick that turns the attack into fireworks, delighting the crowd. Dennis then turns the tables, summoning Performapal Trapeze Witch, and with a brutal series of attacks, leaves Kite's life hanging by a thread, convinced he's already won because he studied his opponent's data. But Kite is unfazed. He draws a card from his friend, draws strength from the power of friendship, and performs a rank up, evolving his dragon into Neo Galaxy Eyes Cypher Dragon. With a three-headed monster boasting 4,500 attack, he activates an effect that not only negates Dennis's monsters, but also steals both of them for himself. To finish with a flourish, he doubles his dragon's attack to 10,000 and delivers a one-hit KO to Dennis. After his defeat, a remorseful Dennis reveals the location of Lulu and Rim. In his final act, he declares that his time with the Lancers was fun, points his duel disc at himself, and turns into a card, throwing himself from the ship. A tragic and dramatic end. Back at the docks, just when the group had lost hope of finding a boat, Selena appears and says, "Need a ride?" Just when we thought Selena had fallen off the map, she reappears out of nowhere, commanding a pirate ship. She offers the group a ride to Duel Academy, and everyone celebrates. But good things never last, do they? The ship was a huge trap. Selena, who is clearly being controlled like an Academy zombie, hands over Zuzu and captures Yuya and Gong. Then Captain Cutter, the ship's owner, enters the scene and forces Yuya to duel. The guy plays dirty, using a card that completely blocks Yuya from summoning monsters from his hand. Basically, he shatters Yuya's main mechanic, leaving him running around the ship looking for action cards to survive while taking constant damage. Just as Yuya is about to be defeated, Crow and Sora arrive by boat in full Mission Impossible style and rescue him right in the middle of the duel. Sora, who fears nothing, takes Yuya's place and faces Cutter. Even with the captain's lockdown, Sora finds a clever workaround. He uses a fusion card to summon Fright for Kraken, proving that for every rule, there's an exception. With a little help from Yuya, who equips a card to the monster, Kraken attacks twice and sends the captain overboard. The group escapes, but the pirate swears revenge. After the rescue, the group regroups and Sora spills the tea. There's a rumor that someone at the academy has mind control powers, which would explain Selena's strange behavior. With this new information, the Lancers finally decide it's time to invade the academy and end this war. Yugo literally materializes with his D-wheel on top of a professor's desk at Duel Academy, screaming for everyone to hear, "My name's not Fusion, it's Yugo!" After his tantrum, he tears through the hallways, proving that traffic laws don't apply to him. Meanwhile, Yusho, Alexis, and Kite arrive on the island and find it eerily quiet. It's like a scene from a horror movie before the jump scare. Kite, focused on rescuing Lulu, doesn't care if it's a trap. That's when Yugo, who is hiding, appears. Kite, ever on the defensive, immediately pins him down, but Alexis explains the situation and they come to an understanding. Upon learning that Rin is in a nearby tower, Yugo hops on his duel runner and speeds off, Fast and Furious style, to the rescue. On Declan's ship, the group finally puts the puzzle pieces together. The professor wants Zuzu and the other 3 girls for his ARC project. The plan is now clear: rescue the 4 girls and thwart the villain's plans. From here, the script becomes a mirror. Kite arrives at the West Tower and duels its guardian, Diana. Yugo arrives at the East Tower and faces its guardian, Apollo. Both guardians use the same strategy of creating tokens to protect themselves and wear down the heroes. Kite sees his monster's attack dwindle, while Yugo loses both attack and life points. When all seems lost, both duels take a spectacular turn. Yugo evolves his dragon into Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, and with a lucky draw, turns the tables and defeats Apollo in a single blow. On the other side, Kite uses a rank-up card to summon Neo Galaxy Eyes Cypher Dragon,
Galaxy Eye Cypher Dragon!
dominates the field and annihilates Diana. But the happy ending is a mirage. Kite finds Lulu, who seems fine. Yugo finds Rin, who first greets him with knees to the gut for taking so long, but then hugs him crying. However, in the middle of the hug, her smile turns sinister, revealing the cruel truth. She's been mind-controlled too. Yugo finally finds Rin, but the reception isn't quite what he expected. After a hug, she simply demands a duel and, without another word, throws him out of the tower window with a scream. And the weirdest part? On the other side, in the other tower, Kite was also thrown out by Lulu. It seems the girls coordinated their attack. Luckily, Kite manages to land on his Raid Raptor Rise Falcon and meets up with Shay and Aster. Aster drops the bombshell. The professor, leader of Duel Academy, likely has a duelist who can control people's minds. If Lulu is being controlled, Rin must be too. Meanwhile, Yugo lands hard on his own duel runner, which he and Rin had painstakingly built together. He's devastated by the damage to his bike, but Rin couldn't care less and just wants to duel. She starts strong, summoning her Wind Witch monsters and wiping out 1,500 of Yugo's life points before he can even blink. Yugo summons his beloved Clear Wing Synchro Dragon, which Rin used to adore, but she treats it with contempt and uses a trap to weaken it. Then we discover who's behind this, a mad scientist called the Doctor, who created parasite monsters that completely brainwash their victims. And the plan is even bigger. The Lancers uncover a file named Revival Zero, which links Yuya, Yuri, and all the girls to the professor's plan. Back in the duel, Rin shocks everyone by performing a fusion summon, something she would never do, and brings out Wind Witch, Crystal Bell. The monster destroys Clearwing and reduces Yugo's duel runner to scrap metal. He's crushed, but he doesn't give up. He summons Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon and manages to destroy Rin's monster. For a second, she seems to return to normal, but it's just a trick. The parasite forces her to summon Crystal Bell again, and with one final attack, she defeats Yugo. To top it off, Zuzu is captured by a similarly glazed-eyed Selena. Meanwhile, Rin, still possessed by the parasite, enters a duel against Selena. The twist is that Selena also reveals she now serves the professor before taking off, showing that the brainwashing is spreading. Gritting their teeth, the Lancers invade Duel Academy but walk right into a trap set by a cadet named Sanders. The group is separated, but Gong, Silvio, Yulia, Crow, and Moonshadow are captured. Sanders announces a survival duel, the 5 prisoners against 5 elite cadets in a jungle arena. The rule is simple and brutal. Losers are turned into cards. Moonshadow, feeling guilty about the capture, escapes to investigate on his own, but his signal suddenly vanishes. The only thing he leaves behind is a cryptic clue, 10+1, suggesting there's an extra hidden participant lurking in the jungle. Meanwhile, Yugo, who is separated from the group, finds Aster Phoenix. Aster confirms the theory of the mind-controlling parasite affecting Rin and Lulu, and the two form an unlikely duo to hunt down the doctor responsible. Back in the jungle, an invisible duelist begins eliminating participants one by one, turning the survival game into a true horror movie and ramping up the tension for those still standing. In another part of the city, Shay finally finds Lulu. He tries to warn her about the mind control, but Kite appears out of nowhere, acting aggressively and defending her. The professor watches it all from the sidelines, manipulating Lulu into attacking her own brother. Left with no choice, Shay begins a duel to try and save his sister. Shay summons his Raid Raptor Rise Falcon, but Lulu counters with Lyrilusk Assembled Nightingale, dealing direct damage multiple times. Shay tries to turn the tables with a rank-up magic spell, but Lulu defends herself and weakens his monster. The strangest part is that even as a puppet, she still uses her usual strategies. Suddenly, she surprises everyone by using Fusion Parasite to fusion summon Lyrilusk, Independent Nightingale. Shay realizes Duel Academy's control is growing stronger. He remembers Lulu's friend, Saya, and uses a card she gave him, Little Fairy, to summon Raid Raptor Stranger Falcon. He begs Lulu to fight the control, but the professor ensures the parasite keeps her firmly in his grasp. Elsewhere, Silvio is forced into a duel, but when he makes his first move, a penalty system hits him and reduces his life points. Confused, he yells for his invisible opponent to show their face. The creature finally reveals itself. It's BB, the Battle Beast, a wild and uncontrollable duelist trained by Sanders. The guy is literally an animal. He brutally defeats Crow and turns him into a card. Yuya and Gong watch in horror, their blood boiling. They challenge BB on the spot. Battle Beast starts with his gladiator beast Laquari and some trash traps that prevent his monsters from being destroyed but double any battle damage. It's a high-risk gamble. Yuya summons Odd Eye's Pendulum Dragon, and Gong brings out his super heavy samurai Stealth Ninja, but BB is a machine. He uses a trap to force Gong's monster to attack, summons several gladiator beasts, and destroys Odd Eyes. To add insult to injury, he activates the card Thumbs Down, which deals even more damage.
Squish your points down 500.
Gong tries a new strategy, but his monster also bites the dust. BB doesn't stop, fusion summoning Gladiator Beast Ondabata and Geyseraz, which wipe Yuya and Gong's field clean. And here comes Thumbs Down again. Yuya tries to grab an action card, but BB physically attacks him. Gong, breaking his golden rule of never moving during a duel, activates a defense to protect Yuya. In a desperate act, he creates a token to block the attack, but it's no use. BB destroys Yuya's other monster, summons Geyseraz again, wipes out Gong's monsters, and uses Thumbs Down to zero out his life points. Before being turned into a card, Gong entrusts his hopes to Yuya. The scene ends with BB advancing to deliver the final blow. The duel is heating up when, out of nowhere, Jack Atlas storms the arena, joining the fray between Yuya, Gong, and Battle Beast. He makes a grand entrance, taking a 2,000 life point penalty for intruding but ignoring Sanders' warning. Jack declares he'll fight alongside Yuya because if the protagonist falls, the entire city goes down with him. On his turn, Jack immediately shows what he's made of. He summons a few monsters and, in the blink of an eye, Synchro summons the fearsome Scarlight Red Dragon Archfiend. Using the dragon's effect, he tries to clear BB's field, but the guy defends with the Gladiator Beast's Medusa shield. But Jack is smart and activates a trap, Red Vanish, which not only shatters the shield, but also slices 1,500 life points off BB. Seeing his soldier taking a beating, Sanders decides to cheat and joins the duel. He activates a card that lets him summon a monster from BB's deck, Gladiator Beast Tamer Editor, and reveals he can control any Gladiator Beast type monster. He's basically hacked his opponent's deck. Sanders orders BB to attack Yuya, but the guy freezes, visibly conflicted. Yuya seizes the chance to turn things around, but BB activates a fortress that makes his monsters indestructible. Things get tense when Sanders pressures BB to destroy Jack's dragon, but the pressure is too much and BB snaps. He turns on his own trainer, using the effect of Sanders' monster against him and dealing massive damage. Now Battle Beast is completely out of control, ignoring everyone and ready to destroy everything. Battle Beast is possessed by hatred, attacking his own commander. Sanders, who is no fool, manipulates the boy's rage, promising him freedom if he defeats Yuya. Yuya tries to play psychologist, saying he understands his pain and that they both faced prejudice. But BB isn't interested in talking and launches a brutal attack that nearly ends the duel. Luckily, Jack Atlas activates the card, Red Gazer, and saves his friend at the last second. The crowd is outraged at Sanders, yelling for him to be turned into a card, but Yuya tries to calm them down, saying duels are about having fun. No one buys it. Seeing this, Jack takes control, performs a double tuning synchro summon, and brings out the most intimidatingly named monster of all, Tyrant Red Dragon Archfiend. Its effect is a clean slate, wiping every other card off the field. But BB had one last trick, Gladiator Beast's Great Fortress. The card absorbs monsters from the graveyard, negates the effect of Jack's dragon, and turns BB's Ondabata into a colossus with 4,000 attack. Inspired, Yuya decides to do something unexpected. He summons a bunch of level 1 monsters, and instead of attacking, starts a performance, like a circus act. The attacks are all choreographed. BB intercepts, but that's exactly what Yuya wanted. He activates Guard Dance from the graveyard, and switches control of the monsters, forcing BB's warriors to dance with his little critters. With BB totally confused and vulnerable, Yuya ends the show, but not with an attack. He gives a speech, reminding him that duels are about connecting and having fun. Moved, BB surrenders and apologizes. Sanders is arrested, and Yuya sets off to find his friends. Out of nowhere, Yuri appears with a Joker-like smile, blocking Alexis and Sora's path. He immediately challenges Alexis to a duel, saying he's heard about her reputation as the best at the academy. She, of course, accepts the challenge on the spot. Alexis starts strong, summoning Cyber Angel Natasha and then duplicating it with a ritual. This move gains her life points and creates a barrier against direct attacks. It seemed like a good start, but Yuri is pure mockery. He pretends he grabbed a random deck from the academy like, oh, I'll just use this one. But in reality, the guy knows every card by heart. He destroys his own trap just to summon 2 monsters monsters and then sacrifices both to bring out Ancient Deer Reactor Dragon. This behemoth simply ignores Natasha's abilities and attacks Alexis straight on, nearly wiping out her life points in a single blow. But Alexis isn't playing around. She revives Natasha and, in a bold move, steals Yuri's Reactor Dragon to counterattack. But Yuri already had a backup plan. He activates a trap that blocks the hit, taking only minor damage. Next, Alexis destroys all 3 copies of Polymerization from his deck, dealing more damage, and tries to appeal to his good side by reminding him of their lost friends. Yuri pretends to reflect on his life, but it was all an act. He reveals he added super polymerization to his deck, fuses his monsters with the stolen dragon, and creates Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem.
I fusion summon Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem!
The monster annihilates Natasha and defeats Alexis, turning her into a card. With a villainous laugh, Yuri declares himself perfect and moves on to Sora, while Yuya runs straight into a trap. Yuri menacingly advances after defeating Alexis, while Yuya frantically races through the lab like the Flash, searching for Zuzu. He finds Lulu, but the girl has a vacant, zombie-like stare, completely under the Academy's control. Suddenly, a 2-on-1 duel begins. The controlled Lulu versus Yuya and Yuto. She draws some bizarre parasite cards to summon Lyralesque Independent Nightingale, a monster that deals massive damage to the heroic duo. In the midst of the chaos, Shay appears to lay it out straight. Destroying the parasite card won't solve anything. The real cure is with the professor, and as if the situation wasn't chaotic enough, Selena, also infected, invades the duel. With an intrusion penalty, she evens the odds, turning it into a 2-on-2 match of controlled friends. Selena uses Parasite Factory to summon Parasite Queen and dominate the field. That's when Yuya discovers the gruesome truth. The girls are being controlled by physical parasites lodged in their brains, and Zuzu is one of the victims. Yuya flips out in a rage, but Yuto takes control of their body to stop him from doing something reckless. With a clever spell, Yuto summons Dark Rebellion X's dragon and declares he will rescue all the girls. As he delivers his hero speech, the villains just laugh, confident that victory is already theirs. Sora's duel against Yuri continues, with Sora using a fusion monster to try and turn the tide. Elsewhere, Yuto duels Selena and her Parasite Queen. Selena uses a trap to attach a parasite to Yuto's dragon, weakening it. Lulu, also under the doctor's control, joins the duel and attaches more parasites to Yuto's dragon, leaving it with 0 attack power. Yuto collapses, and Yuya takes over their body. A parasite tries to enter his brain, but a dark energy fries it. Yuya gets up, furious. Back in the other duel, Yuri summons his strongest monster and defeats Sora. In the lab, the doctor reveals himself as the master of the parasites and the one responsible for capturing Zuzu. This revelation sends a shockwave through Yuya and Yuto, who feel an uncontrollable rage building. Yuya is captured and taken to the big boss, Leo Akaba. Meanwhile, the duel between Yugo and Yuri begins, with both summoning their dragons. Leo Akaba reveals the history of the 4 dimensions, which were once a single world. He explains that technology created a duelist named Zark, who merged with his 4 dragons and became the Supreme King Zark, a machine of destruction. Yuya's father was a friend of Leo's. The energy from the revelations and the duels affects Yuya. Under the influence of his dragons, he begins to transform into something evil. The spirits of the 4 dragons unite with him in a fusion that mirrors what happened to Zark in the past. An explosion occurs, confirming the worst possible news. The Supreme King Zark has been reborn. Yuya, freshly out of his awakening mode, arrives at the lab and finds his father, Yusho, and the others. Professor Leo Akaba tries to convince the doctor to give up, but when the man refuses, he turns him into a card, freeing the girls from mind control. Leo reveals the whole story. He explains that to stop Zark, he and his daughter Rei created 4 cards that split her and Zark apart, fracturing the world into 4 dimensions and giving rise to the Yuya boys and their respective girls. Leo reveals his plan. Use the energy from the people turned into cards to revive Rei, but this would also bring back Zark. Declan refuses to help his father, stating that his duty as the leader of the Lancers is to protect Yuya and the entertainment of dueling. Professor Leo reveals the Art 5 reactor, a sinister machine that uses the life energy of people trapped in cards to merge the dimensions and revive Rei. Angered by Declan's refusal, Leo begins a duel against both him and Yuya at the same time. Declan proves he's a force to be reckoned with, summoning monsters from all 3 summoning methods, but Leo manages to destroy Yuya's dragon and one of Declan's monsters. The tension escalates when Yuya sees Zuzu trapped in the reactor. Rage consumes consumes him, and Zark begins to take control. Inside his mind, Yuto tries to talk to Yuya, and for a moment, he regains control, performing a fusion summon with a new monster and attacking Leo with everything he has. But at the last second, Zark takes complete control, letting out a classic villainous laugh, signaling that he is finally back. Professor Leo Akaba accelerates the Arc 5 reactor to merge the dimensions. Declan tries to intervene in the duel, but Leo is clever and steals one of his monsters. With his possession of Yuya's body nearly complete, Zark summons Dark Rebellion Exis Dragon and a new dragon, Odd Eyes Raging Dragon, which goes on a rampage. Seeing things spiral out of control, Yuya's father, Yusho, enters the duel and forcibly ends it. Yusho explains that the only thing preventing Zark from dominating Yuya was Zuzu, but now that she's trapped, the darkness is winning. Yusho leaves the mission of saving the girls to Declan and heads off for the final battle. Yusho finds Kite and Aster and tells them that Zark's plan is to merge the 4 incarnations. To prevent this, they need to stop Yugo and Yuri from meeting, but it's too late. The two are already dueling in a hallway. Kite and Aster join the fight. Yuri and Yugo summon their dragons and the battle becomes chaotic. Yuri uses super polymerization to fuse the monsters and create Greedy Venom Fusion Dragon.
Greedy Venom Fusion Dragon!
Things look grim, but Kite and Aster make a sacrifice. They are defeated to save Yugo's monster. The Arc 5 reactor is almost at 100%, and Leo Akaba is ready to pop the champagne. His plan to unite the dimensions and bring back his daughter, Rei, is about to succeed. But Riley suddenly wakes up, radiating pure Rei energy. She says that Rei herself told her she is needed to defeat Zark, so shutting down the reactor is not an option. Hearing this, Declan is like, no way, thinking it will cause a dimensional apocalypse. Since they can't agree, a determined Riley challenges Declan to a duel to settle it. Declan isn't playing games and starts with a combo that looks like a video game cheat. He performs a Pendulum, Fusion, Synchro, and Exis summon all in the same turn, flooding his field with giant monsters. Riley, on the other hand, plays it cool, summoning just one small monster and setting a card face down. Declan activates a contract card that practically forbids Riley from playing, blocking almost every type of summon. He attacks, but Riley's monster manages to copy the enemy's attack and survives. On the next attack, Riley's life points plummet. When all seems lost, Riley uses an action card and survives by a thread. Then comes the spectacular comeback. She activates a trap that copies Declan's contract, uses another card to destroy both contracts, and weakens all monsters on the field. With a clear path, she performs a wild fusion, creates the monster Triple C Sonic Halberd, and attacks 3 times, wiping Declan's field and winning the duel. A twist worthy of a movie. Meanwhile, Yugo and Yuri are duking it out elsewhere. Yugo is resisting Zark's control and attacks Yuri's dragon, but Yuri is the kind of villain who always has a card up his sleeve. If his dragon is destroyed, Yugo's monster goes with it, and he takes damage. Yugo manages to bring back another dragon and tries a new strategy, but Yuri survives. On the next turn, Yuri turns the tables, revives his own dragon, steals the ability of Yugo's monster, and defeats him. Yuri flashes one of those classic villain smiles after winning the fight. He shouts, "Now we are one," and simply absorbs Yugo, like Cell from Dragon Ball Z, taking the power of both. He's feeling like the king of the world. Riley tries to reason with Declan, saying that if he shuts down the reactor, Rei won't return to help stop Zark, but Declan is in full overprotective older brother mode. Priority number 1 is saving Zuzu and preventing the dimensions from merging into total chaos. Without a second thought, he performs a Pendulum summon, brings out a new powered-up monster, boosts its attack even further, and destroys Riley's monster, winning the duel. It was a tough call, but he did what he thought was right to protect everyone. Speaking of villains, Yusho, Yuya's father, decides to step in and confront Yuri. Even though he's badly injured, he's not about to let the guy who wants to absorb his son get away with it. The duel begins with a super confident Yuri, who summons a small monster and sets his traps. Yusho responds by bringing out his signature monster, Performapal Sky Magician. He tries to use an effect to destroy one of Yuri's cards, but the villain blocks it. Yusho tries again and manages to destroy a trap. He attacks, but Yuri successfully defends and reduces the damage. Yuri starts mocking him, thinking Yusho's plan is a failure. Little did he know it was all a masterstroke. Yusho reveals he was just forcing Yuri to use his cards to figure out which one was left. He activates a divination spell, correctly guesses the card is Super Polymerization, and removes it from the field. It was a 4D chess move that left Yuri stunned and Yuya, who was watching it all, filled with hope. Yusho showcases his skill and manages to deal some damage to Yuri, but Yuri reveals it was all a trap and uses ultra polymerization, summoning Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, and with the powers he stole from Yugo, also summons Clear Wing Synchro Dragon. Yuri creates a devastating combo that deals increasing damage to Yusho. In a final sacrifice to protect Yuya, Yusho throws himself in front of the attack, is defeated, and turned into a card. With Yusho out of the picture, Yuri taunts Yuya and summons Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, the same monster that defeated his father. The monster's presence strengthens Zark's influence over Yuya. Remembering his father's words, Yuya summons Odd Eye's Pendulum Dragon and other monsters. Yuri responds with a Synchro summon, bringing out Clear Wing Synchro Dragon. Now, with 3 of the 4 dragons on the field, Zark is closer to taking complete control. Yuya is left with only 1 life point and summons Dark Rebellion Exis Dragon. With the 4 dragons finally reunited, the apocalypse begins. But, in a final act of betrayal, Yuri steals Yuya's dragon. At this point, the Arc 5 reactor reaches maximum charge, unifying the dimensions. Yuto is swallowed by darkness, and Yuya's body is about to merge with Zark. The Arc 5 reactor hits maximum charge, and the plan to merge the 4 dimensions is about to happen. It's the apocalypse, folks. Professor Akaba tries to isolate Yuya in a containment field to prevent him from becoming part of Zark, the final boss who's about to be resurrected. Meanwhile, Yuya and Yuri are in the middle of a brutal duel. Yuri, controlling not only Starving Venom, but also Dark Rebellion, is basically trying to download Yuya into himself and complete Zark's resurrection. Yuya is fighting with all his might to avoid being consumed by this evil vibe. In an act of desperation, Yuya sacrifices his father's Smile World card to activate a trap. It's a heavy moment, but it works. He negates Yuri's attack and shuts down his monster's abilities. Still, the emotional blow was harsh. Seeing Yuya shaken, Declan and the gang give him a pep talk like Mickey yelling at Rocky Balboa in the corner of the ring. With renewed motivation, Yuya uses a card to destroy Yuri's trap, regains control of his Dark Rebellion dragon, and on top of that, steals Clear Wing Synchro Dragon from the enemy. The tables have turned. Yuri counterattacks, but Yuya is faster and annihilates his monster before any damage is done. Dark Rebellion then weakens Yuri's dragon, but the villain activates a card that prevents Yuya's monsters from attacking. But Yuya had one last trick up his sleeve, reversing the effect and going for the final attack. Odd Eye's Pendulum Dragon destroys Yuri's monster with double damage, and the victory goes to Yuya. Before being absorbed, Yuri hands a card to our hero, but when Yuya shouts, "I won!" things get sinister. His voice deepens. He drops the dueling is fun talk and focuses only on winning. He summons the card he got from Yuri and merges into a bizarre, unstoppable force. The dimensions begin to collapse. Zark is coming. The reactor fails, and Zark finally emerges from the fusion, laughing and announcing his triumphant return. The guy has barely arrived and is already challenging everyone to a fight, spreading widespread panic. In the midst of the chaos, Riley says she's hearing Ray, a kind of spirit who needs to be revived to stop Zark. The problem? There isn't enough energy. Leo Akaba despairs, realizing their only hope is gone. Seeing the situation, Aster and Sora, wanting to make up for their past mistakes, decide to take on Zark. It's a 2-on-1 duel. Zark, full of himself, accepts and even lets them go first. Aster summons his monster, but Zark's cards, the Supreme King Gates, simply block the damage and increase his life points. The guy is practically a video game cheat. Sora steps in and tries to use a pendant to wake up Yuya, who is trapped inside Zark, but it's no use. Aster even manages to activate a trap that clears Zark's field, but that was exactly what the villain wanted. The guy was playing 4D chess. This move allows Zark to summon his Astrograph Sorcerer, and then comes the Master Stroke. He banishes this card and his 4 legendary dragons to merge with them and transform into the Supreme King Zark. It's the beast's final form. With his new power, he simply annihilates Aster and Sora's monsters, dealing absurd damage. When all seems lost, Kite and Shay arrive in the arena, ready to join the duel and save their friends. The cavalry has arrived. The duel against Zark is raging, and Kite and Shay are giving it their all. Shay gets his Raid Raptor, Rise Falcon on the field, but Zark is like that overpowered player who has an answer for everything and uses Dark Rebellion to block any direct attacks. The door is shut in his face. Then Kite steps up, trying to be the hacker of the match. He summons Galaxy Eye's Cypher Dragon to try and control Zark's monster, but the villain simply hits the negate abilities button. Not gonna happen. Seeing how serious things are, the two heroes use a spell card to level up their monsters, almost like a Pokemon Mega Evolution. Out come Blaze Falcon and Neo Galaxy Eye's Cypher Dragon, with their attack power multiplied. Kite, being the strategist of the group, activates a brilliant trap. Either Zark's monsters attack the new superpowered creatures, or they get banished from the game. A true checkmate, but Zark couldn't care less. He sacrifices his own Dark Rebellion to bring back 2 Dark Worms, and with a wave of his hand, he reduces the attack points of Kite's and Shay's monsters to 0. The situation has become critical. Just as Zark is preparing the finishing blow, the unthinkable happens. Jack Atlas and Gong invades the duel. He simply pays 2,000 life points to join the fight, as if it were an arcade game, and it doesn't stop there. Gong also advances, determined to pull Yuya out of that possessed body. This brawl just turned into a royal rumble. Jack Atlas didn't come to play. He immediately enters the duel by summoning his iconic monster, Scarlight Red Dragon Archfiend.
Scarlight Red Dragon Archfiend!
Zark's response is so absurd it feels like a cheat. He uses the Dark Worms to Synchro summon during Jack's turn, bringing out Yugo's dragon, Clearwing. It's like your opponent playing a card on your turn in Uno. Clearwing charges in and destroys Scarlight, but Jack is smart and activates a card to protect his dragon. Next up is Gong, who joins the battle not to fight but to save a friend. He floods the field with his samurai in defense mode and tries to use the power of friendship, reminding Zark of his childhood duels with Yuya. Zark, being the villain he is, basically laughs in his face, equips Clearwing with extra power and wipes all of Gong's monsters off the map. Gong takes the hit and survives, but the message was clear. Jack then pulls a trick out of his sleeve, Vision Synchro, and summons an even more intimidating dragon, Tyrant Red Dragon Archfiend. Tyrant attacks, but Zark once again shows he's playing on another level. He not only negates the damage, but converts it into life points for himself, and for good measure, sends Jack's dragon back to the deck. When Zark finally strikes at Jack, Silvio and Crow appear out of nowhere and throw themselves in front of him, taking the hit in his place. Zark immediately dominates the duel against Crow and Silvio, summoning 2 defensive Darkworm dragons before the guys can even catch their breath. Crow isn't intimidated and responds with a Synchro summon, bringing Raikiri to the field. But Zark is like a 4D chess master and uses his opponent's move to summon his own dragon, Clearwing, which instantly pulverizes Crow's monster. Crow, stubborn as ever, revives Raikiri, but Clearwing is just waiting to send the poor thing back to the graveyard. Not giving up, Crow uses another card and summons Chidori, which finally manages to chip away 1,000 of Zark's life points. Seems like a victory, right? Wrong. Zark activates a trap that forces Chidori to attack again, only to be destroyed. As a bonus, he summons 2 more Dark Worms. Crow even tries to revive Raikiri one more time to destroy Zark's cards, but the villain is immune. Then it's Silvio's turn, who makes his entrance with his cast of Abyss actors, but Zark cuts him short by Pendulum summoning Supreme King Dragon Odd Eyes, a corrupted and sinister version of Yuya's dragon. Silvio tries to use his script cards to turn the tables, but Zark is protected by all the monsters that have already gone to the graveyard. Suddenly, Professor Akaba, the big boss, enters the duel wanting to use some special cards that have defeated Zark in the past, but Zark activates a trap that not only destroys the professor's hand, but also wipes out his life points. And to top it all off, Declan joins the fray just as the professor is defeated. Zark is using Yuya like a puppet, but Declan arrives to crash the party, declaring that Yuya is still in there fighting and that it's time to act, and the guy isn't messing around. He pulls off an insane combo using all 4 summoning methods: Pendulum, Exis, Synchro, and Fusion. It's like the complete Yu-Gi-Oh! Tasting menu. With this, he negates the effects of Zark's cards and manages to lower his life points. But then Zark drops a bombshell. He himself created Pendulum summoning, specifically as a weapon against someone named Ray. He activates a trap and simply resurrects his 4 supreme dragons to turn the tide. Declan manages to defend himself using his monster's abilities, but Zark's power is overwhelming. When all seems lost, Moonshadow returns, and Riley reveals to everyone that she's actually Ray. She activates 4 special cards: End Flowers, End Birds, End Winds, and End Moon, which act like a giant delete button, destroying all of Zark's dragons and leaving the villain significantly weaker. Deep down, Yuya manages to fight back against the control and activates the cards Smile universe, which is basically the power of friendship in card form. He summons several monsters and even restores Ray's life points. With this help, Ray uses N flowers to destroy the remaining monsters and finally defeat Zark. Before the villain could respawn across the dimensions, Ray seals him once and for all, separating the universe again. End of the line for the big boss. Yuya wakes up in bed, completely dazed and confused after the whole ordeal with Zark. His mom shows up and tells him to relax, since it's Sunday. Declan, who's always watching, explains that Zark's defeat essentially gave the world an upgrade, turning everything into the Pendulum dimension and giving everyone the ability to summon this way. It's like when a game gets a free DLC update for all players. Yuya receives an invitation to the Junior ARC League Championship. He doesn't think twice and rushes to sign up, running into Gong and Silvio there. Declan shows up again to change the rules. The championship will now be a 4-duelist battle royale. At the opening ceremony, one competitor is missing, and who shows up to complete the lineup? The mysterious ninja, Moonshadow. The duel begins, and Yuya summons Performapal Hip Hippo. Silvio attacks, but Yuya dodges with an action card. Gong attacks too, but Yuya sidesteps it again. This hippo is more agile than the Flash, but as the brawl rages on, the crowd starts having bizarre flashbacks. Yuya's mom remembers old duels. Silvio recalls his loss to Yuya. Gong remembers fighting the Obelisk Force. It's as if everyone's memories are slowly coming back. In the midst of this confusion, Moonshadow manages to destroy Yuya's Hip Hippo and preps an attack for 2,000 points of damage. The championship battle royale is heating up. Silvio and Moonshadow decide to form a temporary reality show style alliance to take down Yuya, but Gong, a true friend, steps in to help him out. Now things are serious. It's Yuya and Gong versus Silvio and Moonshadow, a proper 2v2 showdown. Yuya wastes no time and performs a pendulum summon, bringing out Odd Eyes to attack Silvio's monster. Silvio activates an effect to double his monster's attack, but Yuya, faster than a text notification, snags an action card and reduces the damage. Even so, Silvio manages to summon another monster and weaken Yuya's field. Our hero survives with another action card, but Moonshadow still manages to deal a little extra damage with a trap. Everyone is dead set on taking Yuya out of the game. Meanwhile, far from the duel, Skip finds that mysterious fan and accidentally enters Zuzu's room. The sight of the room triggers his memories, and they all come flooding back. He remembers that Zuzu was his best friend, that he traveled across dimensions to find her, and he realizes the universe is starting to split apart again. Zark's return is a real threat. That fan wasn't just a fan. Back in the arena, it's Gong's turn. He summons his super heavy samurais, equips Big Benkei, and goes all out on Silvio, knocking him out of the duel. GG. Now it's Gong versus Moonshadow. But at that moment, Yuya starts remembering everything. Zuzu, the times he lost control. His entire demeanor changes. No more dueltainment. No more putting on a show. Now, there's only one goal. Victory, at any cost. He summons Astagraph Sorcerer, merges with Zark's energy, and utters the phrase that sends a chill down everyone's spine. I am Zark. Declan shows up and lays down the hard truth. Riley's sacrifice was just a band-aid. Zark will return, even stronger. And without the cards that sealed him, the only hope is to make Riley feel true joy. And guess who's the only one who can do that? Exactly, Yuya, with his dueltainment. Even Yuya's father, Yusho, appears to give him a push, telling him to surpass his own style and save not only Riley, but Zuzu as well. To test if he's up to the challenge, Yuya faces Gong. But Gong abandons his usual stationary style and comes at him with surprising agility, pressuring Yuya with the brutal attacks of his super heavy samurai steam train cane. Basically, a possessed steam train.
Make way for the paint train! Super heavy samurai steam train king!
Yuya starts the duel completely stiff, feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders. Gong doesn't let up and tells him to focus. Yuya finally snaps out of it using his Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon and a clever trap to weaken Gong's train. The two begin a frantic exchange, racing across the field for action cards. Yuya secures the win, but Gong rains on his parade. Okay, you won, but the baby is still stone-faced. It wasn't enough. To top it off, Declan announces the tournament isn't over and opens a portal to the X's dimension. Yuya's mission? To face one last mysterious Lancer. Yuya barely sets foot in the Exius dimension and runs smack into a problem, Dennis, and he's not there to chat. The guy whips out a polymerization card, revealing he's from the fusion dimension, and issues an ultimatum: duel me or get turned into a card. With no choice, the duel begins. Yuya summons his classic Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon, but Dennis counters with Performage Trapeze Witch, equipped with a mask that blocks spells and traps during an attack, like a bouncer for the opponent's field. During the clash, Yliaster even makes a quick appearance just to remind everyone that the fusion dimension folks still aren't exactly trustworthy. Yuya manages to turn the tables using a mirror rabbit that reflects effects, but his joy is short-lived. Dennis levels up and summons Performance Trapeze High Magician, a monster that can attack 3 times per turn. Yuya's life points plummet to just 100. He's practically running on fumes, but just when all seems lost, Yuya pulls a rabbit out of his hat. With a brilliant combination using Odd Eyes, Performapole Swordfish, and some rank-up magic cards, he sets up an insane combo. The result? His dragon attacks 5 times in a row, obliterating Dennis's life points. After the victory, instead of just leaving, Yuya has a better idea. He convinces Dennis to stay in the X's dimension and teach duel-tainment to the kids, helping to rebuild the trust that the fusion dimension destroyed. Dennis accepts his new dig as a duel instructor, and Yuya continues his journey to save the day. After the professor's bombshell revelation about the dimensions merging, Shay absolutely loses it. He blames Yuya for his sister Lulu's potential disappearance and, without a second thought, challenges him to a duel fueled by pure rage. Shay wastes no time and comes out swinging, summoning Raid Raptor, Rudder Strix to deal direct damage straight to Yuya's face. Our hero tries to defend with his Pendulum combo, bringing Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon to the party, but Shay is in full-on rage mode, using traps and action cards to multiply his monsters and continue the beatdown. Things get really serious when Shay summons Raid Raptor, Rise Falcon, which basically turns into a power vacuum, sucking up the strength of Yuya's monsters to destroy Odd Eyes. In desperation, Yuya grabs a miraculous action card to save himself from defeat, but Shay is in such a try-hard mode that he cancels the play with another card. He evolves his monster into Raid Raptor Revolution Falcon, ready to finish the job, but Yuya pulls another rabbit out of his hat, Odd Eyes Lancer Dragon, which acts as a nope button for Shay's monster's abilities. In the climax, Shay summons Raid Raptor Final Fortress Falcon. The situation seems hopeless, but Yuya activates his dragon's final ability, which makes a master play. It splits the damage, taking only half and throwing the rest right back at Shay. The result? They both hit 0 life points, but only Shay hits the ground. Instead of being angry, Shay smiles. He saw Yuto within Yuya, and that gave him hope that Lulu is also still alive. With his former rival's blessing, Yuya renews his promise to save everyone, but the peace is short-lived as Jack Atlas appears in the distance, ready to be the next boss fight. To make things even more epic, Declan reveals an interdimensional racetrack, the Multiverse Speedway, and Crow hands our hero a duel runner. It's basically Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds now, with a turbo duel crossing all 4 dimensions. Jack isn't messing around and immediately summons his ace monster, Scarlight Red Dragon Archfiend, putting immense pressure on Yuya. The problem is, Yuya is scared. He knows that if he summons his 4 dragons, he could reawaken Zark, the ultimate villain sleeping inside Riley. It's like holding a self-destruct button and being unable to press it. Jack senses his hesitation and taunts him, summoning an even more sinister version of his dragon, Tyrant Red Dragon Archfiend, and nearly sends Yuya packing. Just when all seems lost, the spirits of Yuto, Yuri, and Yugo appear, like a team of Jedi Force ghosts, and give him a motivational speech to stop being afraid and fight with everything he's got. Inspired by his personal ghost squad, Yuya finally musters the courage and summons the Fantastic Four of Dragons, Dark Rebellion X's Dragon, Clearwing Synchro Dragon, Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, and the good old Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon. The field is now packed with absurdly powerful monsters. The consequence is immediate. Riley, who had been completely unresponsive, finally reacts. But it's not a good reaction. It's the sign that Zark is awakening. Basically, Yuya solved one problem by creating a much bigger one. Yuya manages to defeat Jack Atlas in an insane race, using his 4-dimensional dragons. But the victory is bittersweet. The main goal, making little Riley smile, fails miserably. The girl maintains an enviable poker face, confirming that Zark's dark vibe is still in the air. Seeing this, Declan, who is essentially the series' final boss, steps up and lays down the law for Yuya. One last duel, an ultimatum. If Yuya wins and finally manages to get a smile out of Riley, he'll become a professional duelist. But if he fails, he can hang up his duel disc for good, because he'll never be allowed to duel again. And his opponent? Declan himself. The stage for this showdown is the Performance Coliseum, the same place they first battled. For a touch of nostalgia, the duel begins, and Yuya isn't playing around. He kicks the door down and immediately summons all 4-dimensional dragons. It's the equivalent of using your super in the first second of a Street Fighter match.
Thanks a ton, you guys. You were awesome. You too, pal.
But Declan is unfazed. He responds by bringing out his 3 Triple D Doom King Armageddons, which look like they crawled out of an HP Lovecraft nightmare, and as if that wasn't enough, he uses a few spell cards to evolve them into their Super Doom King versions, making it crystal clear he's here to end this duel quickly. Declan wastes no time showing why he's the final boss. He activates one ability after another and simply wipes Yuya's field, sending the legendary dragons to the graveyard as if they were nothing. Yuya's life points plummet, and the situation looks dire. Desperate, he does what any good protagonist does. He asks his friends for help, except his friends, Yuri, Yuto, and Yugo, live inside his head. With the power of the full team, he begins his comeback. It's a breathtaking sequence. First, he fuses 2 monsters to bring out Odd Eye's Venom Dragon, but the creature is destroyed. No problem. He uses another card and summons Odd Eye's Winged Dragon, which also gets sent to the scrap heap. Next, he brings out Odd Eye's Rebellion Dragon, which attacks relentlessly, but fails to destroy Declan's monsters. The duel essentially turns into a crazy scavenger hunt. Whoever collects 5 action cards scattered across the field first gets a massive power-up. The 2 of them start running and jumping like they're in a parkour competition. At the last second, Yuya gets the 5th card. His monsters become gigantic, but Declan, no fool, gets his 5th card too, and everyone's power doubles. When all seems lost, Yuya pulls out one last master stroke, activating an effect that clears the field and gives his Odd Eyes a final boost for the finishing blow. Declan loses, but with a smile on his face because the plan worked. Riley is finally laughing. The victory is so epic it causes a glitch in the Matrix. Everyone from all dimensions is teleported to the same place, and in the middle of the celebration, Zuzu is revived. Happy ending? Not a chance. Yuya's father appears out of nowhere, activates his duel disc, and challenges his own son, proving that in a card game anime, the battle never truly ends.
It's time!